Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's 7:05 on February 25th. At this time, I'll call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order, and we'll do our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. We have some announcements and board openings before we get going. We have some seats up for re-election. Papers were just pulled for them. We have 2 openings for Board of Selectmen, 1 for the Hamilton Wenham Library Trustees, 1 for the Board of Assessors, 3 for the Planning Board, 1 for the Housing Authority, 1 for the Moderator, and then I believe papers are able to be pulled for the Hamilton Wenham School Committee. We have 3 openings for that until the 25th, Allison, is that right?
Yeah, today.
Oh, today, ooh. Today by 2 hours ago then.
Yeah, so everyone's, I don't think anyone can, no one can any longer submit any papers to any of the committee or boards.
Right. So, next time around.
Yep.
All right, board and committee openings. We have 1 position for the Board of Health and 2 positions for the Town Hall Building Committee. And now we have a section for public comment, 3 minutes on topics not already on the agenda. If you want to say anything, you can just come up to the microphone, state your name, and free to say whatever you would like. Greg?
Good evening. My name is Greg McKenna. I'm the voluntary commander for Post 194, AP Gardner on School Street here in Hamilton. On behalf of the Post, I'd like to make, thanks God, how are you? I'd like to make the following statement. This past week, AP Gardner, American Legion Post 194, Hamilton, was contacted by the Hamilton Wenham Chronicle regarding inappropriate content on its Post Facebook page that is not representative of the Post charter or mission. The Post apologizes that this content was posted and missed on its site. As a direct result, the Post took immediate action, located and removed all this content from its Facebook page, and the Post released a statement for publication to be included in the article online last week and in the newspaper print later this week. Additional to the statement, the Post will work diligently to consult with Massachusetts American Legion Adjutant Office and engage professional social media experts as to how to create a written policy, content administrator qualifications, and safeguards online to ensure the Post's mission faithfully. The Post also pledges to make these social media guidelines public once thoroughly crafted and complete. As a small nonprofit with limited resources, we remain dedicated to our commitment to veterans and our Hamilton neighbors, striving to always exceed expectations. We ask that the Post be trusted to move ahead dutifully to continue its important mission representing all Americans. I thank everyone for the chance to speak here tonight, everybody at home watching, and the audience here in the room. One unrelated note, I know I am without power up in Huntswood. We do have a standing generator at the Post, so anybody's welcome if they need to get down there to charge their devices. I know I got mine charging over here, and warm up if they're in the cold.
Thank you, Commander.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Anyone else? All right. We'll move on to some reports then. Allison.
Sure. Sure. So the CPC approved funding to the community house in an amount about $200,000, which will become in front of the Hamilton residents as part of the warrant this year. Congratulate Dr. Harvey for finding his new position at Masco. Unfortunately, it puts us in a position where we'll have a new leader in the community and need to go out in a search. I tried to get a listing of who had pulled papers for the school committee and was unable to do so. So I think that the administration, some of the staff were confused on what public record was. So I went to the state and the state clarified it. It is public record. They need to divulge that information to residents when residents request it and not hold it tightly to their chest. I read the regional agreement as part of looking into the nomination papers and other things, and found that changes that were put in place or should have been put in place in 2010 have not been put in the language of the agreement. So the agreement's language that you approved at the 2010 ATM wasn't incorporated correctly. It also looks like some of the dates that they have. So I've asked the school committee to put it on their agenda so that they could correct that. Additionally, I was speaking to some people who thought it might be a good idea if, I know it's difficult to open up the regional agreement and we all have different opinions on what should change and how it should happen, but it looks like for the best interest of the school and the residents of both towns, there are some things that we should clean up. And so I didn't know if it might be possible if we created a list of things that we wanted to see changed, a list from the school committee and a list from Wenham, and see if we agreed on any. So to run for school committee, it's the only elected position that I know in the state that you actually don't have to get nomination signatures when you're being reelected.
Right.
You just say, no, here I am. And it doesn't get certified by our clerks. So it's funky. I think it was probably done for a reason at one time. But I think we could all agree on correcting things like that going forward.
Yeah, I'll go one more, Allison, because you're talking about the list. I was going through my email today since we're going to be transferring email servers pretty soon here. And actually, I found an email with the running list for the regional agreement and the specifically, besides representation from Hamilton and Wenham on the board, was your that the nominations be certified by the town clerks was one of the things that we were going to ask for, and that was maybe 3-4 years ago when we were kind of talking about that. It didn't go very far, but it's worth, like you said, putting on the list for when it does come to fruition.
I didn't know if maybe we could come up with a list of some cleanup items that we could all agree on, and just clean up those and move forward. And that's all. I have more when we'll talk about the warrant.
All right. Bill, anything from you?
Yeah, it was a busy week. I was away on school vacation week, but a lot went on in the last 10 days in this town. So let me update on a few things. Planning board, they got their first report back from the public forum, where they collected all the data from the community about what people wanted to see in terms of housing, where they wanted to see it be developed. So there's a sort of PowerPoint presentation I think will be distributed out to the community on that. They also have a draft of the Hamilton housing plan that they're working on. And so it's a 14-page document. We're working through that, and hopefully to get that published soon. A couple of things within the actual public hearings. There was a power pole that was, I'm going to say cellular pole that's being proposed for sort of Bay Road 1A, and they rescinded their application. So it's good. So we're kind of concerned about how that would populate itself down 1A over time within the right-of-way of the state highway.
Right, and that's the second time this same
and it went away.
Company has done the same thing.
So they're working on, obviously, we're working on a warrant article, maybe reinforcing our cellular tower bylaws to maybe prevent this in the future from happening. And then there was an application for the public. I know a lot of people have been concerned with the public safety signage. So there was an application to go in front of the planning board for a site review. And now it's got to go in front of the ZBA. I think in the background, we're looking at how to maybe improve our signage approval process, so it's not a two-step process.
Right.
With a little more clarity. But right now, we at least want to get that through. So it went through planning board. I think it's one more hearing, and then it'll go to the ZBA. On the Affordable Housing Trust, I think we're still looking at that property on 468 Asbury Street, and we have a meeting first week in March. And then we also have a warrant article to change the
Quorum.
And then for the library director, Julie Clay has done a great job. There's 15 applicants right now, so we're going to have interviews, or not interviews, we're going to have a discussion of who to interview, I think, Wednesday and Thursday, executive session to go through all the applicants. So pretty robust, pretty impressive 15, and they all have, you know, experience, relevant experiences, why they're still on the list. So
That's good.
those meetings are for Wednesday and Thursday of this week. That's all I have.
All right. Jeff?
Yeah, just real briefly, the Town Hall Building Committee has met a couple of times with the architects. I think the architects have done an overall really great job. They've come up with a couple different concepts, and the idea now is to get the concepts out to as many people as possible to get feedback based on those concepts from other committees, from employees. Joe helped me out, from the community at large. We really want to get some feedback, because there's some decisions that the building committee had to make about use of the second floor and that old theater space. Some ideas about the grand staircase out front. So I think really the idea is to get out in front of it and let people know what the discussion is.
They're going to be looking for input directly from the Hamilton Historical District and the committee and the Hamilton Historical Society, as well as the Council on Aging, and do so in a public forum that any member of the public can attend, listen, offer feedback at one of the upcoming meetings. I don't want to give a date because I don't think it's been determined.
Right.
But it's going to be coming up here pretty quickly.
Right.
They've been given a total of 9 different options to look at. For the most part, they've scaled it down to 2, although option 1 still remains something that has elements of option 1 that are still being discussed. So the next meeting, when you see it advertised, feel free to come and join us. There'll be kind of a full, complete airing of the 2 options that the committee has gotten down to, and hope to see some more progress towards something that the town can support.
Yeah, it's a great committee. They chose a new chairperson, Mike Toomey. We have 2 positions open, so if anyone would like to get involved, it's a nice group of residents. It's a new group, fresh faces, which is nice to see. And I think they've worked really well with the architects. A lot of times with these projects, the architects come in with pretty grand ideas of what could happen. And this group did a really good job of scaling things back, making things more reasonable, hopefully more palatable in terms of when it comes to the cost. So they're doing a good job. That's it.
Thank you, Jeff. Scott?
Are you or Joe going to talk about the meeting with the FinCom?
We'll let you.
I was
for it.
just
All
gonna
yours.
be brief, but the Selectmen met with FinCom last week, and we got a second quarter FY19 update. Marissa does a big booklet with a lot of great analysis she gave to us. Thank you very much. It was excellent. There were no surprises, which was wonderful.
Which is all online if you want to see it as well.
There you go. And another topic is myself, and maybe I'm jumping, I don't know if I'm jumping Joe, but we're both at the same meeting along with Kaylee, who's welcome. Our second or third day maybe with the town as the patent director, but there was a messaging workshop to try to help the Patent Homestead Board get cleared around how they're going to go approach donors. So it was really, really good. And lastly, still doing some help trying to get volunteers, and they've been coming forward, which is wonderful, for 133 Essex Street, collecting information about historical use and maintenance of the trails. So there's been a lot of people providing input about using it, and then there's a smaller group who's now going back into some really deep into our records that are stored at the library here or other places, so we can improve maintenance and use of those trails going back more than 20 years. So thanks to all the volunteers who are helping on that as well. That's my update.
All right, thank you. I really don't have much tonight. The Conservation Committee meets tomorrow night, right here in this room at 7. They're discussing some things on their docket. One is, and it escapes me, the memorandum of understanding with the Patton Ridge folks about the open space parcel that's out there that's next to the Patton Ridge community, and how they're going to manage that. They have a conference coming up that they'll be talking about. Some budget items. I believe they'll be talking about our road acceptance policy or the complete streets. I could be speaking out of turn.
It shouldn't be the complete streets, perhaps the road.
Maybe it's the road acceptance. And I think that's pretty much it for me that I can remember at the moment now. Joe?
Yeah, Town manager report will be online tomorrow. Some of the items that are in it have already been addressed by Jeff and Bill, so I'll try to go briefly through some of these. The town email update. The town's email migration project is about to be underway. We are on track to have all town email accounts transitioned to a new email provider utilizing the Outlook 365 platform by mid-March. The new email will provide our employees, boards, and committees with more functionality, but forewarned, unused email accounts will be deleted. The new platform is a little more expensive, and we get charged by the number of accounts we have, so if people aren't using their accounts, you may find that you can't use your account. So please log in if you intend to use it. We support all boards and committees that need them using town accounts because it makes it easier for us to archive for public records requests purposes, but we're not going to pay for accounts that aren't being used. So.
No change in email addresses,
Nope,
right? So anybody who's reaching us uses the same mechanism.
It'll all be transitioned to the same mechanism. Our email addresses will stay the same, just the platform we're using to get and receive. And I've used the Outlook 365 platform in the past. It'll be incredibly easier for our employees and department heads and stuff to sync to your smartphones and use that media to be able to interact with us, which is great. Syncs to your calendars and everything else.
I'm looking forward to it, actually.
I am too. Support for the MVP. Both the town's planning board and conservation commission have heard requests.
That was what they're talking about, the MVP.
Yeah, they both had requests to support our application to the MVP program, and will be voting at their next meetings, but they've indicated their willingness to support the grant application, so that's great.
And just for folks at home, the MVP is the
Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program from the state. So we had a big presentation on that at the last Board of Selectmen's meeting, so we're moving that project along as quickly as possible. Progress on the new e-newsletter, easy for me to say. Sterling Technology, our website provider, is nearly finished preparing the template, and we expect to be beta testing it with town staff in the next week or so, and then we'll be actively trying to encourage residents to sign up for it. This will be an opt-in thing, but we will, if we have your email address through Code Red or some other platform, you'll probably get an email from us asking you to go in and opt in. That'll make it easier to get the word out to folks. I wanted to let the board know that after my monthly meeting with both Russ Stevens and Chief Ray Brunette, I've appointed Ray Brunette to also be the Emergency Management Director and Forest Warden, consistent with the duties that Phil Stevens had while he was Fire Chief here. Since Phil's departure, those two roles have been unfilled nominally, and Ray is well-suited to take these things on. The meeting with Ray is part of an agreement to meet with Ray monthly during his probationary period, and I'm pleased to report that Ray is doing a great job. He's exceeding the expectations that Russ had for him. He and I had for him before he began. He's doing a great job, and I will probably be talking to you soon about having to negotiate a contract with the new fire chiefs starting the fiscal year. So we'll just put that on the back burner for right now. Bill reported on the progress for the Public Safety and Council on Aging sign. A quick staffing update. We've got another vacancy in the Treasurer Collector's office. Unfortunately, the employee we hired in December did not work out, so we'll be, that joins a continuing vacancy in the Finance Director's office. So I intend to meet with Marissa and Cheryl Booth, the treasurer, next week, and kind of lay out a strategy. There may very well be a recommendation for some minor reorganization in that department. Nothing that will push us outside of what we're budgeted in terms of financial resources, but we may look to shift some things around, some responsibilities around to make those positions a little bit more attractive. And you'll be getting, you have, not for discussion here tonight unless you really want to push me and test my knowledge, but you were provided tonight with some documentation from Marissa that are some updates to our FY20 budget amendments. A number of things have changed since we initially proposed the budget in mid-January, including what our health costs are going to be, our health insurance costs, I should say, our IT software costs. You'll remember we had been budgeting, for instance, $30,000 for an upgrade to the assessing software. After some back and forth with Andy Wood and Tina, going back and forth with the technology provider, they've got that down by $10,000. So there's some decreases and some increases. The budget is there. You'll be able to look at it and see what has changed, both in terms of what we proposed for this year, but also in terms of where those stood in relation to last year's budget as well. And Marissa will be here at the next meeting on next Monday, so we can answer all those questions for you. And in response to Sean's question about the water dye test kits to help folks determine if they're leaking water anywhere in the system, Tim Olson has ordered the test kits. We'll be informing all ratepayers in the next billing cycle that they are available upon request. One of the things we found out as we were doing our homework on this was that probably 15 to 20 years ago, we ordered a bunch of these things and they just sat in the back. So we didn't over-order them. We ordered a small number, and we're going to ask people, let us know if you need them, rather than just leave them there. So
That makes sense.
hopefully. On the regular things, as far as my goal, we have Kaylee Perret here tonight and Mark Johnson to talk about the homestead, so I'd rather we give them the opportunity to do that and not steal their thunder. On the Chabaco Road well exploration in Manchester, you'll remember the FY20 budget projection for capital investments had included a cost associated with paving and laying water main along Chabaco Woods Road. After meeting with Tim Olson and Marissa last week, we've decided to remove the cost for the water main portion of the project for now. There are still a lot of questions, a lot of regulatory discussions that have to happen, both with DEP, joint management discussions to happen with Manchester if we decide to go down that road, and we're not even really sure that that is a solution that will solve our water security issues yet. So rather than plan $1.5 million for a capital project that may not be in our best interest, we're going to recommend removing that from this year's capital plan. And that's it for now.
Sorry, I forgot, but do we have an update on the cell tower? The last we heard, the judge was going to tell us in December.
That's a great question. Joe and I have been trading emails with Adam Costa this week, and there's no movement, no news.
Adam did offer to have a phone call with me to talk about the options if we wanted to try to hurry the process. Two things about that. He has previously warned us against, angering the judge, and when you have phone calls with lawyers, they cost money. So I'm not necessarily taking him up on that right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and pretty much the options that we have are the same options that we have done already, so we'd be doing it a second time to try and move it ahead. So it's a little, I don't know if it's best practice or not. I think we just wait, unfortunately. Just one other question to either you, Joe, or you, Bill. I got a document from Patrick from the results of the first public forum. Did everybody else get that?
Yeah, a little PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, a little PowerPoint.
Yeah.
It talked about all the different options in the work groups and stuff like that. So, is that on our website?
I don't know, but I can check into it.
Yeah, if we could put that on the website, I think that would be good, because I found it pretty interesting from the group that got together and the different little cohorts that they got together and figured out where they might put housing in town and what the demographics were and how long people had been in town in the group and stuff like that. I thought it was kind of interesting. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. We have approved minutes from the Board of Selectmen regular meeting and executive session on January 22nd, 2019. Appoint appointment of Olivia Hyde to the Historic District Commission, effective April 1st, 2019, for a 3-year term. We had a member leave the Historic District Commission, and there's a pretty extensive process going through the state to find a new person. We've done all our due diligence, and we've got a qualified applicant, so she's on our consent agenda tonight. The Hamilton Wenham Garden Club plant sale request for permission to use the Council on Aging Saturday, May 18th from 8:30 a.m. To approximately 1 p.m. for their plant sale. And then the Friends of the Hamilton Wenham Public Library request permission to post the book sale banner on Bay Road at the intersection with Asbury Street from Monday, March 4th until Friday, March 22nd. Also, the North Shore Nordic Association requests permission to hang a banner on the tennis court fence at Patton Park. The banner is 3.5 feet by 4.5 feet, and it's effective from when they put it up to March 15th. I think their window they would like would be in future years is December 15th to March 15th, advertising the Nordic Association.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. All right, on to our agenda. Our first thing, we have appointments of 2 members to the Open Space and Recreation Committee. We have 3 applicants for 2 final seats.
It's been recommended that we have you appoint all 3 because you could always have one of them serve as an alternate, and there is the potential that one of the newly appointed members may drop off, so.
You took the words out of my mouth.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say either an alternate or an associate member or whatever we want to call it. I say we appoint all 3 of them and run with it. If anybody's got any objections to that.
I make a motion that we appoint all 3 applicants to the Open Space Recreation Committee.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, perfect, unanimous. Moving right along. Discuss and vote on language for the special act relative to 550 Highland Avenue. So in your packets, you have the language for the special act, of which I'll read right now. An act relative to the historic curatorship program in the town of Hamilton by Representative Hill of Ipswich and Senator Tarr, a joint petition accompanied by bill, house number to be determined, of Brad Hill and Bruce E. Tarr, and by vote of the Board of Selectmen relative to the historic curatorship program in the town of Hamilton. And then be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives in general court assembled and by the authority of the same as follows. And it reads, Section 1, notwithstanding any general or special law to the contrary, the historic property owned by the Commonwealth through the Department of Conservation and Recreation at the address of 550 Highland Street in the town of Hamilton shall not be subject to provisions of Chapter 59 of the general laws for any such period of time as the property is leased by the Department of Conservation and Recreation to one or more residential curators pursuant to the curatorship program established by Section 44 of Chapter 85 of the Acts of 1994, so long as the curators are in compliance with the terms of the lease and the curatorship program. Section 2 reads, real estate taxes that the town of Hamilton has assessed, but which have not been paid on said historic property or in the holder of any leasehold interest under said curatorship program are forgiven and not subject to collection under Chapter 60 of the general laws or any other general or special law. And Section 3 reads, this act shall take effect upon its passage. So as you know, many of us here in Town Hall and Town Council and the Kaminskis and their council and everybody involved, we've been working towards a solution since town meeting to, I guess, move on with the property and get it out of the turmoil that it's brought. So tonight we're looking at the language of this. It's gone through our council and their council, so we're looking to approve this language tonight if we so choose. So if anybody has
I
any.
had one comment, but
Yeah.
just to be like ironclad, but Section 2 says real estate taxes that have been assessed. What about penalties? Taxes, is that, penalties fall underneath that? You have to say taxes and penalties, or just taxes will cover that? I just don't want to have anything to,
Right. That's a good,
there's a
good
bunch of
point.
penalties that have accrued
That's
too.
a good question. I will we'll ask that. You can vote it subject to that change being made if warranted. And if it needs to have end penalties, I will make sure it gets added before it goes to the state.
Okay. So would you say and any accrued penalties?
Correct.
Okay. Other comments? I know, Jeff, this is something you've been paying attention to.
Yeah, no, it looks good.
I make a motion that we accept this and move it to the state with any amendments that Joe may need to make, accounting for penalties.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving right along. We have our introduction of our new Patent Homestead Director.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kaylee Perret, and I'm the new director of the Patent Homestead. Today is my 7th day of work, so I don't have a lot to report for you, but I can give a little introduction of myself. I've worked in the museum field for 10 years, most of which have been spent in historic sites similar to the Patent Homestead. In my 7 days here, I've met a lot of people, some of which are on the Patent Homestead Inc. board. Some of them have been within Town Hall, other partners around the town of Hamilton. I've met with the building inspector and the chief of fire to figure out the capacity for the building so we can move forward with events both indoor and out. Right now we are going to focus on promoting the space outdoors for events, both public and private events. I have a long list of ideas that I've come up with and ways to engage the community within the space, inside and out. And I welcome any ideas that come from other people. So you can reach me at kpare@hamiltonma.gov. Send me your ideas. I'd love to hear them. And we look forward to planning some events for this spring, including marking the 75th anniversary of D-Day and other events. So thank you.
Welcome. Where are you located?
I live in Haverhill.
No, I'm sorry.
So my office is in the Patent Homestead.
Perfect.
I'm in the north wing, so I'm close to the parking lot.
Okay.
She'll be sharing that space with the Hamilton Historical Society, hopefully before April 1st.
And I'm currently also sharing the building with the Wenham Museum's archivist and some of her interns that have come in. She's in the south wing, I'm in the north wing, and then we have some empty space in between us right now.
Okay, perfect. Well, welcome. Thank you. It's been a long time coming, so we're excited to see what comes out of it.
Thank you. I'm excited to get started and bring some of these ideas into fruition and create the Patent Homestead into a thriving community space for Hamilton and beyond.
Thanks, Kaylee.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Positive things coming our way.
So we're moving pretty quickly with a big agenda, but if anybody has any comments, please don't hesitate to raise your hand or stand up or come to the podium, because we're not going to necessarily see you, so make yourself known. And
Good point.
We want comments, so if we go by an issue and say something, please come up to the podium and let us see you.
I'm just assuming you're following the agenda.
I'm going to follow the agenda. So up next, we have presentation/recommendations of the PHI board. We have Mark Johnson with us to present tonight. Welcome, Mark.
Hello, everybody. So I am in lieu of Corinne Kale, who's president of the PHI. She is not in town and has asked that I give this presentation. So there are a couple of things to go over. The first is we are so excited that Kaylee has joined us. It means, the ability of us to implement, of the whole town, to implement things rather than asking and imposing on every board that touches on the property to sort of go out of their way to make something happen, is now, now we have implementation capability. I mean, it will be a marked difference in how the town experiences the property. And Kaylee, welcome aboard. You've got a big challenge ahead of you on that. The Board of Selectmen had asked us through Scott to come up with a fee schedule. So we had, the Patent Homestead Inc. had worked with the Board of Selectmen to engage ESC consultants to look at the property from a couple of different perspectives, basically to help us work towards a business plan. That was part of what the FinCom had asked last fall. And to do that, they had to look at the marketability, they had to look at pricing, they had to look at a lot of different things, what types of events and cultural activities we would be having there. They came back and gave 4 excellent structured, well-structured recommendations, and I hope the town gets their recommendation up on a website somewhere. You know, it went probably in the Patton Homestead piece, but they didn't come up with anything new, but they came up with a structure that works and a structure that will help communicate. It'll help, you know, everything stay in its bucket and help the communication go along the way. Along the way, they had fee structure. And Scott had asked that we present to the Board of Selectmen, that we reflect on that and present to the Board of Selectmen a fee recommendation. Joe had some input in it early on to sort of come up with on an hourly basis rather than per diem basis, and that made sense because to give flexibility to have shorter events and longer events. So we did that. I gave that 2 weeks ago. We met and gave that to Joe and Scott, and hopefully you'll have seen it. If not, you'll see it shortly. But basically, it has weekday events, evening events, and weekend events, and it breaks out different sections of the property that might be available for rent. Keep in mind that the property is unfinished in the middle, and the stables are unfinished as well. We had in the fall a very successful outdoor wedding, tented outdoor wedding down in the field, and an excellent event in the stable. So we know we can hold events there. It's just the indoor materials are not finished. And so the pricing structure, if someone looks at it, might say, hey, how come we're at this price point? It's because we don't have we're not a finished event center, we are a cultural center. And so, we're gonna work, and the next phase is going to be doing the fundraising to make it all happen, and that'll take some time. But the objective is to not have it be a burden on the town and try to do it through fundraising and grants. So you have the fee recommendation. You either have it or you will have it circulated shortly.
We have it.
I apologize.
Just so you know, we don't have it.
I just noticed that it isn't in the packets, and I don't know why, because we did have it. So I will get it all to you tomorrow. We'll also get it up on the website. So I apologize that it's not in your packets tonight.
No worries. I mean, it's just for your input and to go forward. Very exciting on the Patton Homestead is Patton Homestead Inc., the nonprofit, is that we've just expanded our board of directors to 6 people. We have 3 new people come on board. 2 are residents of the town, Susan Shelby and EJ Weldon. Very excited. They both bring different skills and perspectives and nonprofit experience, and they will be phenomenal on a bunch of different ways. And then Paul Consigliere is a retired Army major who is just massively well connected on the North Shore. Nationally as well, but he's in a local community, and he's joined us as well to have a veteran's perspective. So that is a huge step forward for us. We have a few other people that are working with us on a capital campaign committee. And that's basically, we're going to be going around asking for money. And if you have anybody who has skills of asking for money, we have plenty of extra room on our board for either the Homestead Board or on the Capital Campaign Committee, because we will be staffing up to do that.
Do you have a start date for your campaign?
I'd say it will be approximately April. And the reason I say that is in Joe and Tim's bucket are to finalize the budget that we have. So the architects that we've been working with, SSV, they came up with great plans, but there had to be some logic put through it. So Joe and Tim were going to sort of look at a lens and sort of move things around, change the timing of some of the scope. But once we have that budget, we will know what we'll be asking for. It was very awkward for us to sort of say, hey, we're looking for money, but we don't know exactly what the budget's going to be. So we're expecting that to come back sometime soon. And once we know that, so part of the ESC meeting that we had last week, to the messaging meeting, was to help us make sure that we're all on the same page with regard to messaging when we go to fundraising. So that was just a necessary preamble to the fundraising piece.
I'm just trying to think of like a kickoff event or something that we can do at the homestead, or couple it with some other thing there to help really kick off the campaign. And
Stay tuned. If you have ideas, speak to them. We're working on this on things as well.
Okay.
So the fundraising motion went into the other board of directors. The ESC, Hamilton Historic Society, is going to be moving in shortly. They will help anchor the north wing. Obviously, the Wenham Archives are on the south wing. We do have an event scheduled for around D-Day. For D-Day to memorialize and honor D-Day. And that's scheduled, obviously, around D-Day, either the weekend, either Saturday before or on Thursday of. And we're going to try to bring in a few of other organizations in town to also have D-Day related events, so that we can all sort of work together and have the common message. I know I've been rambling. Any questions?
Yes. How do you arrive at the rental incomes for rental revenue and event revenue? Like, how many events at what rental rate?
So we don't have that. That implies a business plan piece. So we've looked at what the fees would be for the events, but we actually haven't dropped in and say we are going to have X many weddings, X many meetings, X many. So that would be the business plan side. We were waiting for Kaylee, for the director, to be on board.
So what's this, the Patton Homestead operating summary? Was in our packet.
That's from Marissa. That's the budget update for the enterprise fund that town has.
So the operating budget
Summary from.
Yeah, so Marissa, Town Finance Director, she had put together a budget, a very detailed budget that went into the fall vote that we had for operating through June. And so this is her draft of the budget going from June to the next year. So
it has the numbers in here for fiscal year 20. Are these not good numbers, or these?
Those are good numbers reflective of the town's cost of operating the center, of operating the Patton Homestead, rather, with a full year of Kaylee's salary in it. The good news, if you will, is that this projection has been updated. It's actually come down from where it was originally in mid-January, when we made our initial budget proposal for FY20. This is reflective of what the town's cost will be in FY20 if this budget's approved. We are anticipating, I believe, some revenue. I think we estimated $36,000 in revenue up here at the top. That was based on a certain number of rentals during the course of FY20. So that was a number we're shooting for. It's not a number that's set.
So who's making those projections then? Is it the Homestead Inc. or is it
I think it was a combination of Marissa and myself working to try to figure out.
I'd like to see what those numbers are, how many events we're talking about, and how many different. And then
I know, just to finish on that, Jeff, I know that we were planning on being even more. So Marissa did not want to schedule hypothetical events. Very unusual. She's used to scheduling only revenue that she has in hand with a contract. So, for example, the $6,000 there is the money from Wenham Museum for the archive space. She was very comfortable saying, okay, she has a contract. That was easy. She was uncomfortable because her position is not one of projecting there. So when Kaylee came on board, one of the things that's in Kaylee's scope is to help us actually flush out a whole business plan that will have a lot more granularity on those numbers, and we'll probably have numbers that are much larger than $30,000.
The budget, the business plan would be a multi-year business plan with projected revenues that we would strive towards in year one. We've got nothing to base it on. So we're trying to project, if you can rent it out X number of dates, what could you reasonably expect to get on that based on, it was done early because it was based on what the ESC's proposed rental figures could be versus what yours were.
Right.
And then we tried to keep it limited with the idea that it would start out low in the first year and grow in each of the subsequent years 2 and 3. Nobody on my end has suggested that we'd reach, sustainability in year one. The idea would be that we would be still putting some money from the town general fund into the operating budget for this year, but that in each year of the business plan that would get lower until you were off.
But Jeff, your point is
be done. I mean, we've owned the property now for 6 years. I know the FinCom has asked for the same thing, some type of operating projection that shows what the revenues can and should be moving forward. I mean, it's good we've got the expenses now, but it seems to me we're missing a big component of this.
Well, they know, maybe I can help because I've been a FinCom liaison and talked to Phil a bit. They know everyone's anxious for a business plan to be flushed out.
Right.
Now Kaylee's here, she needed time to develop it. So that has to happen. But one of the precursors also was getting this ESC input and PHI's advice that then we can decide what the actual fee structure is. So that's in place, and then come up with a reasonable, what will be then the reasonable business plan. And the FinCom knows that's not going to be here before the town meeting. Kaylee just, this is day 7.
It's not going to be, we're not going to know. I mean, I just feel like going to the town for town meeting for the 6th year in a row and not having a plan for the Patton Homestead is irresponsible. This has drained from the town coffers. Our tax rate is projected to go up 47 cents per thousand. And this is costing us money, and we haven't seen anything in return for 6 years now.
All right, well, before you get too excited about that, Jeff, the gift agreement you signed included that there's 150 grand worth of revenue that's not even recognized in these amounts.
Scott, that revenue was
the gift.
It was sold.
That we accepted, and the purpose of it was to help support what was going on at the homestead. So
but it was never sold to our community that the revenue received from those condominiums of the 150,000 was supposed to be used to help the ongoing cost of the Patton Homestead. That was always sold to the community as a way to reduce our tax burden. And
so I know, and what you're
are.
picking on here is this 30,000 out of our $30 million budget, which I understand, and that now we just hired Kaylee last week, so.
Okay, so my other question is, so we'll wait for that. We don't know when that's going to be.
We hope to have a draft of the business plan by town meeting.
By town meeting.
By town meeting. And, I would anticipate that by the second meeting in March, we'll be previewing to you all a proposal for a fee schedule to be adopted by the board for the PHI. Because we'll build our business plan projections based on whatever that fee schedule is and what we think we can reasonably book in the first year.
Yeah, I think we're going to be really close on what you're asking for, Jeff, by town meeting, but it's, it's a tight schedule, with Kaylee just coming on and everything like that, but I do see it coming to fruition either just before town meeting or just after. So kind of everything will kind of gel at that time, and Mark, you may be able to.
It's important. I think it's important to say that in the fall, when town gave us authority to hire a director, we then had to write the job description, do the posting, interview the process. I mean, that took much longer, probably an extra month and a half than we were expecting, and then it ran into the holidays. So, the time from when the town said, "Hey, get a director involved," it's okay for you to do that, to now is not that long, given the laws of hiring someone.
Plenty of time.
No, I'm talking about from when we had a director involved.
I'm talking big.
And I think to your point, Jeff, though, it has been 6 years and it has been a long process, but I feel that in the last year, we've really gained some momentum here with hiring the director getting the business plan together, it's satisfying
Yeah.
FinCom's ask, our asks.
Yeah, it's also, one other thing is, for the last 3 years, there's been no money other than CPC from the town, because the budget for operating the homestead came out of the land sale proceeds and not from general fund. So you are correct. The initial approximately 35,000 or so that for 2013, 14, and 15, and a little bit of 16 were town expenses, but for the last 3 years, the money has, for operating everything, including overhead assessed, has been coming out of the land fund, the land sale funds, not general fund.
And then just curious, for fiscal year '20, there's $30,000 being transferred in from unreserved fund balance?
Well, that's in that was in the budget that was established at the special town meeting. That isn't going to get used before July 1st. So
It's a carryover.
We're going to carry it forward.
Okay. And then the 88,000 transfer from other funds, where's that coming from?
The 88,000 would be the request that we're making to have transferred in from the general fund.
From the general fund?
General fund, but it
That would be
was
property
originally going
tax.
to be at over $100,000, and now we've been able to reduce it.
It's worth saying, do you have the overhead number on that version? Because of the budget for the homestead, it's also paying back the town
Yeah.
for overhead.
Yeah,
But it's still,
it winds up being a wash, right? Because we get transfer of 88,000 from the general fund into the account to make it a total budget of 154, but the town charges back the fund another $43,000 for.
So 43 out of that 150,000 just coming right back from that money, right?
To pay for
right back
our
to the town.
Pay the town's cost of maintaining the funds, staff time to do that, not including Kaylee.
And importantly, the reason it's that way is because we passed a special act to make the economics of the homestead transparent, because we wanted to address the types of questions you've had over the many years, right? So we did pass that, and this is just one piece of the pile of things that will be part of the annual report that are part of that transparency package, and that's state law now.
when's the annual report?
I imagine it would be ready for town meeting. I mean, I think that's when it's.
I think they're working on the annual report now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but the point
That's
is that
like
transparency was something that was very important, because we needed to answer. You were always asking the right questions, and we just didn't have access to the information because the way the town accounted for things in different buckets. And so now we have that, including the burden of paying for insurance at the property rather than in the town bucket, and including paying back the town $43,000 a year for overhead.
Because that's just food for thought. That's at $80,000, taking it out of the general fund, that's about 8 cents on our tax rate. So, I mean, when we're looking at our tax rate going up by about 50 cents, every penny counts. I mean, that's 8 cents.
We hear
It's a
you.
lot of difference. So, the town will have to decide.
Anything else?
Right.
Thank you,
Any
Jim.
other questions for Mark while he's here?
No,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for the update. Up next, we have second reading of the capital committee policy. You have, I think, the final draft in your packets. Got it emailed to you today, I believe. And at our FinCom meeting, we talked, or I should say our joint FinCom meeting, we talked a little bit about the charge, purpose, role, et cetera. And Scott's drafted the final version of it, so if you haven't looked it over, give it a second to look over.
So did we get comments from any FinCom members? Because this appears to be the same one that we presented to FinCom.
I did not get any.
Okay.
Did you get any, Joe?
There was one comment.
Yeah, they were,
think it came
there
up.
wasn't an overall, we heard the FinCon comments and we were with them collectively. Darcy gave nothing specific to writing to change in here. The changes from our first draft reflect all the input that we've gotten. Marissa had the most substantial stuff, which makes sure that it reflects the town, the policy we've already adopted, the capital planning policy, so that's in there.
I had a few comments, but go ahead.
Sorry, the 5th paragraph just has a small typo. It's member space in terms. But I thought, and I very well could be not remembering correctly, but I thought at FinCom in the first paragraph, last sentence, where it says, "an annual recommendations to the
Town.
We were going to change that to BOS and FinCom.
No, I know that's what one person was asking. By law, so we talked about these alternatives of structure. Well, the special act that controls the town manager and how budgets come forward is that this is a town manager responsibility, hence a committee that we're authorized to create to help Joe get this accomplished.
No, I understand all that. I wasn't necessarily opposed to, I mean, I don't have a strong feeling one way or another, honestly. I just didn't know how I thought we had left it differently there, that's all.
I think she had talked about, instead of saying to the town, to the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom, but to me, the recommendation is to the town, because it's, town meeting that ultimately makes the decision. And I think in other towns that have a capital committee, I think oftentimes the capital committee comes to town meeting and presents their capital plan. So.
Okay, then I make a motion.
If I could just answer Chairman's question, that's accurate, but it's also, the place of the FinCom to make a recommendation on that, on their recommendation. So, I mean, I think the way I envision working with this committee is, once established, myself and the department heads will work with the committee. This is the 5-year plan. These are what we're thinking about this year. They'd meet, they'd discuss, they would do their own research, make recommendations for amendment to it, and then help us formulate the questions that would go into the capital ask for the annual town meeting. And then that's a part of the regular town meeting process. It has to be reviewed by you and approved to be put on the warrant.
Right.
And then it has to be reviewed by the FinCom, and they make a recommendation to town meeting. Whether they approve or they agree with or don't agree with, favorable action or unfavorable action. So.
No, I agree.
I mean, are we really splitting hairs here?
No, that's what I'm saying. I just was wondering.
I'm not trying to take anybody's authority away at all.
I agree with, we should have the committee. I think this is written, as well as we're going to write it. You always have the opportunity to adjust it and tweak it as you need, go forward. But I don't think we're giving anyone any undue jurisdiction over anyone else through the process.
It's not a power grab or to take something away from somebody.
It's really got to reach out across CPC, the schools, Wenham, across all the departments of the town. So it's probably as expansive as any we've got.
Yeah, I would say so.
I agree.
I'm okay with leaving the town in there unless anybody has any other objections. I mean, we can always, like we spoke about the other night, it can be a work in progress as we go along through the process here, and we can always revisit it. But I mean, I really don't think it's here nor there whether it's the town or Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee. It's all coming out of the same pocket, right? So any other thoughts on the draft other than that?
I missed the last meeting, so I had some I would say administrative type comments, but I'll just go through them just to make sure. So one thing, I read some other capital committee type policies, bylaws, warrants. They mentioned a dollar amount. I mean, that may already be in our financial. I didn't pull out our financial policy, but does that sort of define the size minimum? Like, does it start at 10,000, 15,000, 50,000? What's the size of the, we're going to call capital?
Yeah, our capital stabilization, our capital plans that we've adopted, and we have previously adopted a policy for what makes it onto a capital plan.
Mm-hmm.
Is it by dollar amount or is it?
Yeah.
Yes, so largely, unless it's generated from a town department has a very small budget. So typically things like a vehicle for the police department or just a truck for the public works department might be contained within their departmental budget, but they have larger budgets. Another department has a very small budget and is only asking for something that costs $10,000 as a percentage of their budget. That's a big ask, so that can be considered onto the capital plan as well.
I don't want to be too specific, but I also don't want to be too open-ended. I don't know if we want to put a dollar amount in there of what some of the other ones had that in there.
I think by referencing the policy we've already enforced, so it's not only that, but I think even more important is in the policy that we adopted was the priorities of capital. What are the most, life safety is up the top, there's a whole cascading series of things, and what doesn't exist without this this committee is the horsepower to help Joe collect all that, categorize it, make sure there's a plan that cuts across all the different departments and committees that we talked about, and talks about funding mechanisms as well, like what's possible out of the current operating budget, what might needs to be bonded, is CPC funding things. So right now, that's, I know I've had several discussions with Jay Butler as a CPC chair. This committee, in his view, is really helpful, because there's times when they do some things that are also capital, which isn't bad, but they don't know exactly how they're supposed to play relative to that. So they would see this group working, implementing the policy as being really effective to help them as well.
And I actually also really see this committee as being informative to us, because a lot of the things that Scott talked about, we can get you a budget projection. We can project where we can get the money from in years 2, 3, 4, and 5 based on what we know debt's rolling off and different things that are available, except that it doesn't tell us what the community wants. Right. So the committee is made up of community members. We, meaning the department heads and myself, can put that together, but it's not from the community.
Well, my next question is, what's the intent of the meetings for the committee? How often do they meet, and then what is the form for the meetings? Are they all public meetings?
They should all be public meetings.
It doesn't need to say that in here, though? It doesn't really?
As a board or committee, the same thing applies. The open meeting,
they're covered by the open meeting law.
The open meeting law applies equally to all of our boards and committees.
Yeah, once we form it, it's open meeting.
And then on the last item, number 7, you said, and the estimated annual cost of operating and maintaining each project. That sort of goes a little bit outside what I see as a typical capital committee.
So the reason why
idea, it just seems like a lot.
It actually doesn't. The other towns that I went and talked to, and the ones that are more advanced, it takes years to get really to be skilled at this, but the ones that are advanced include this, because it isn't just buying something, it's being able to afford the support and maintenance of it. So we're trying, we've got really great financial policies, we've got good financial results, we've got AAA bond ratings, we have a lot of great things from the DOR standpoint in terms of expertise and high levels of financial practices. So the one thing that comes along with capital that's really important isn't just like, oh, we're going to buy this thing or we're going to invest in the thing, but what's it going to cost to maintain it, and make sure that that gets included in operating expenses over time as well. So that's why that's in there, because it's an important concept.
It's an important concept. It's a little different. The skill set's a little different from the first 6. It's something that you need someone with some special expertise to sort of figure that out. It's not quite the same as
the members. So when we talk about members for a moment, because we're going to, I think if this goes forward, we're going to reach out for people. They have to have a knowledge of how the town operates. Doesn't mean you're a detailed operational person. It's like, okay, Tim Olson will tell them what the cost of maintenance is for major capital things, or there's a new facility, or fields, whatever capital projects that we're going to have. It's not necessarily this person or anybody on this board has to be a professional maintenance person. They got to make sure that part of the plan that's being forward or request for anything says,
find that information,
are the capital amounts, is that reasonable? What's the ongoing maintenance stream that comes along with it? And then that's all considered together across the board of all of the requests that are in place. So the skill sets are people who do have financial skill, which is good, or at least experience with significant capital projects, probably even multi-million-dollar ones, so they know what it takes to bring one of these things to fruition. But another important thing is, what's the cadence of our town meeting and our budgeting cycle and all the different departments and committees and what they do, or like CPC is an example, and they need to make sure stuff's up on the board way early so that they can know how to vote on stuff before it moves ahead to funding. So and then the other part is just, since it covers the whole town, whoever's on this, I think, needs to have a very broad perspective. They need to understand, what are the changing demographics in the town, what is our school needs that might be forthcoming to us, what could be all the different programs that are in place. So it's pretty comprehensive. So somebody who really kind of has a true overall view is really, those are some of the 3 skills. Is like relatively big projects is probably good. Knowing overall what is going on in the town, I'd say, because this group has got to reach out to get all, and help integrate all this stuff. You know, those are really
It's all
what we're
good
looking
stuff.
for.
It's just trying to make sure you got to get a lot of 5 people, a lot of different skill sets. I think the one thing that I would like to see, though, too, is that I think that capital planning is about what our assets are, what our facilities are. So it's almost number one should be, it starts out with what are the next 5 years. I think
What's
it's
our
more,
baseline,
what's our
right?
baseline? What are all our town assets? What are all our town facilities? And then out of those, what needs work in the next 5 years? I think almost number one is make that comprehensive list of all
Asset management.
So
Well, town
you're
facility.
right. One of the things that first happens is what are all our capital assets that we have? And behind the scenes of this group is working on a small database of what do we have? What is it? Describe it all in a consistent way. How's it fit into these set of priorities of how we're supposed to be worrying about them or funding them? So it isn't just adding new things. It's what do we have
Right.
today?
No, but I think it's good.
Any other comments? We want to make a motion to accept it?
I make a motion to accept the Town of Hamilton Capital Committee, what are we going to call this? The
Policy?
Charge.
dated February 25th, 2019.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. One last kind of thing before we move on, just to Scott's comment on membership and Bill's about kind of qualified people and getting the ball rolling here with actually getting people on the committee. I think it would be good if we had somebody kind of already on the Board of Selectmen that was maybe not going to be on the Board of Selectmen coming up soon to keep him involved in said process. I would take any nominations for a first member on the Capital Committee if anybody wants to make it. And really kind of throwing Scott Mattern under the bus here, and I hope he's okay with it. But I think he'd be great on the Capital Committee since we want to keep him involved in things. You can't just let him go that easy. So
I'd love to do it. It's something I've been preaching since I first became a select person and went to training and learned about it. I think it's really a critical thing, and it'll, you know, I can build on some of the stuff I've already learned and the people that I've worked with, and it'll keep me engaged in the town, which is why I like doing these jobs.
no, I think it'd be good because Scott's worked with the board. He's been involved in the library with Wenham, so he's got the big projects and capital stuff in mind. So I think it'd be a good fit. Anybody want to make a motion?
Motion that we nominate Scott Mayer as the first appointment, but it has to be, what, after April?
No.
How's that work? What's the date?
Well, these roles are not, the
overlap.
structure of this, of what we had learned was we're not designated from different boards. It's just get people going. And so it's not only if I'd like to do it now, but I'd also be encouraging other people get their applications in so we can get it going quickly. Because,
So let's maybe say effective
yeah.
tonight.
Like tonight, nominate Scott Mayer as the first member of the Hamilton Capital Committee.
A second.
Second?
Thank you, Jeff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Perfect. All right, and then we have, excuse me, second reading of the road acceptance policy, waiting on planning board DPW response. So I'm going to suggest, it's in your packets tonight, but I'm going to suggest that we table it. I
I
know.
only have one comment to make.
Yeah, if you have any comments on it to make, go right ahead, but as far as accepting it tonight, I think we should wait. I know Tim still wants to kind of, there's a lot of variables with some of the developments and some of the roads and stuff. I just want to make sure that we've got everything assessed before we move on with it. But if you do have any comments tonight, we'll take them. But I think we should wait a little bit longer for Tim to kind of get all his ducks in a row, and then either he'll come back to us or Patrick will come back to us, and then we'll move forward with it.
I think the only issue from the planning board was I think there's a Berrywood is currently in process. And so it's
They've
being
already applied
so
for-
it's being grandfathered, so I think,
Right.
I mean, it's not a huge item, but that was, I think their only concern is that they're in the middle of a review right now for, maybe it was Berrywood. So Patrick's gonna send out a notice on that or an email, but that I think was. the only
Because they started that process about 3 years ago, maybe? Has it been that long? Yeah. So,
Just grandfather anybody who's already started the process before the bylaw
Grandfather
change.
to what?
To the previous,
to the
Policy.
previous.
Because we don't
Policy.
have a,
yeah, I don't,
we don't have
yeah.
a policy.
We do. We do have a road acceptance policy today.
Well, I thought we decided to not, didn't our last meeting, a couple of meetings ago, we got rid of that, waiting for this to happen because we knew we needed to stop the current,
I don't think that you've.
Policy?
Yeah, the previous policy was a general bylaw that was adopted by town meeting. So I don't think that you,
I don't think we can
No,
rescind.
it's a policy. It's not a bylaw.
the idea here was to
Policy.
have something that we could recommend to replace it.
So can you check the minutes to
Okay,
see
now
what
I'm-
we've done in the past on this, the last couple of meetings, and see if we took a vote on it?
because the thing that confuses me now is if we're working on a policy, we're not doing a policy to supersede a bylaw that was in place.
I don't think it's a
I don't,
bylaw. It's a
I don't think
policy.
it's a bylaw,
okay.
it's a policy.
Policy.
policy to supersede a policy.
Yeah, it would just be
Yeah.
this would be the new policy.
We're just updating the policy.
But my question is, did this version that we have in front of us go in front of legal? And then, given Bill's recent comment, can we get feedback on whether or not, if we pass this policy, can we grandfather?
In people that have already started the application
Yeah,
process,
I don't know
right?
that, I don't know how that would work.
I don't know
So, can we answer those two questions
Yeah.
before it comes in front of us?
Where
Yes.
would-
If I may, on the policy, so it really comes down to the existing policy has a 50% obligation
Right.
for the residents and 50% for the town. The recommended policy, if I understand it, is 100% residents. And it really goes to the condition of the property, the condition of the road. Is it the right gravel? Is it the right width? Is it the right, whatever the standards are? And so that really begs whether that the policy should have something about grandfathering. I mean, so, is it an intent to start the process? Is that grandfathered? When you first sort of raise your hand and say, hey, DPW, I want to be grandfathered?
Right.
Or do you actually, is grandfathering when you
Have done
hire a
engineering
contract to
study
have a
and-
survey of the property done? It's a tricky thing. I understand exactly where Bearwood's coming from. They did start the discussions, but I don't know what actions they took. And I think as your policy going forward, you're going to find
Establish where
seems
that.
like this. So consider whether or not what locks in a grandfathering concept is the only recommendation I have.
I agree, because there's been a number of street owners, property owners on these various streets that have come forward to the planning board. But Berrywood might be farther ahead than
Right,
others.
right.
But
I know
so
there's at
I don't
least
know, I
two.
think we should define that, though.
And I think that the last meeting we had talked about, most of the policy was on surface and width. And I think at the last meeting we had talked about the infrastructure that goes underneath water mains, et cetera, like that, we wanted to be included into the draft because it's the whole package deal, right?
Yep.
So it's not just the surface of the road.
Right. And other services, like we talked about,
Right.
trash and recycling and.
Right,
you know,
exactly. Right,
All in kind of-
it became a bigger policy, I guess, than just the surface of the road and the width of it. All right, any other comments on that? All right, we'll take that up again next time.
Not next week, you mean the next regular meeting?
Yeah, next regular meeting. And then consideration of the letter of clarification to the HCA with Green Meadows Farm. This, you have in your packet, just came out today. If you feel comfortable discussing it today, we can. Otherwise, we can table it to our next meeting and take it up then.
Can someone do legal ease here and tell me what the fine print change is here?
So, Joe, maybe you can
Yeah,
help clarify too. It's basically, they've got an inter-company agreement where they're selling to themselves.
Okay.
And the question is, what's that? Is there a discounted rate, is there not a discounted rate?
Okay, so that
Or that
affects their,
that affects
their
their
revenue.
revenue, right?
Revenue, and therefore our
The thing that
percentage is based on that.
what I understand is anybody commercially in the state has got it, it's almost near 50% of what their output is. They have to sell to themselves their own retail operation.
Right, 'cause they gotta
so
have a
there's not
dispensary,
something
too.
weird at Patton, I mean, at the Green Meadows Farm going on.
Right, no, they have to.
That has to happen.
By law, right.
But the purpose of this is not to do some, well, we're going to sell to ourselves at like
Right.
nothing, and
We're gonna
therefore the
wholesale,
town
right,
doesn't
they
get
wouldn't
any
make any money.
revenue out of it.
Right, right.
So they are suggesting in here that they might discount themselves, you know, up to 20% off of what the market is. And they want us to acknowledge that and authorize it as for terms of, and so that's up to you. That's your decision on that.
Has it come before legal? Has legal read this and given an opinion yet?
Donna's read it. Her only question was, does the board want to allow them that ability to charge themselves something less than, you know, and I don't even know if allowing is the right term, right? I mean, they're going to build a business plan based on what they can sell the product for. Both entities, they have two entities. One entity is the grow facility here in town. Another entity is a sister entity in another town that's going to sell what they grow here in town. I think that they'd make the argument that in order for their business model to work, they need to be able to purchase it at a certain price, give themselves a competitive advantage. But they'll agree that they'll charge market rate to anybody outside of themselves, and they'll index that to this.
So I have a couple
cannabis
questions.
benchmarks.
One is the sense of urgency for this. Like,
Right.
how soon do we need it? And the reason why I'm asking that, because of another thought, which is Green Meadows Farm is not the only game in town,
I was
in
gonna
the state, so
What are the
maybe
other people doing?
one of us could go knock on a couple of doors, and is this ratio's right? Because everybody
Right.
else is doing the exact same thing. Let's just find out how
Right, that was my
it's
next
going for
question,
everybody
was,
else.
is this the go-on discount rate?
Right.
Or is there a discount rate?
And
what
I mean,
is-
I'd be happy to help chase that down too.
Right.
So we can find out what some other.
Right, because right now, every grow facility has to sell to themselves in the state right now.
Right.
So there has to be some other matrix here that people
Right.
are using. I would kind of assume it's a similar matrix, but I'd just like to be sure before we agree to it.
So I say we table this, I make a motion, we table this until our next regular meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, and pending clarification of the, what do you want to say, the going rate?
Yeah, the intercompany sale issue,
Intercompany
right?
sales, transactions. Okay. And then, excuse me, moving on to discussion and votes on warrant articles for annual town meeting. We have a bunch of articles here. I'll read them all, and then we can just kind of tick them off one by one. So we have planning board articles. There's 3 of those. Updates to inclusionary zoning, cell tower bylaw, and the sign bylaw. The road acceptance policy, general bylaw with planning board input. The FY20 general budget, including stabilization fund appropriations, the FY fiscal year 20 capital plan expenditures, community preservation committee articles, the Patton Homestead, the operational budget, OPEB, can't speak it today.
Irrevocable.
Yes. Trust, basically it's a housekeeping issue for the most part. Appointment of town clerk article, the Hamilton Affordable Housing Trust bylaw update, that's the change in quorum that Bill spoke about earlier in the update. Airbnb, which I believe the planning board is not going to be bringing forward at this point in time, seeing what they said at the FinCom meeting the night after we left. And discussion of any warrant articles not known at the time of the agenda setting.
And I don't know of anything since we.
Yeah, I don't know of anything new.
last week, so.
So let's start with the planning board articles. Updates to inclusionary zoning, cell tower bylaws, and sign bylaw. As far as if I can remember, the inclusionary zoning is mostly talking about our senior housing bylaw, if I'm correct. Is that right, Bill? Where we've got right now we've got a over 55
Right.
on the bylaw, and the state is saying that as far as affordable housing goes, the threshold, I think, is 62. And so, like, our Canterbrook senior housing bylaw isn't quite up to MGL right now.
It's also the formula for determining a payment in lieu of.
Taxes,
developing
right.
a-
All right, and-
community.
right.
Affordable housing.
Affordable housing payment.
And
Mr. Chair, I have a suggestion. I don't know if this is timely or not, or
Yeah.
it derails you, but it also kind of runs into the next thing. I think one of the key, our job is to prepare the warrant, get it out there. That's a selectman's job. Obviously, we do it with Joe and Donna, Marissa, and everybody else involved in it. I think one of the key things that would be useful is for all the warrant articles, we should help develop like a quick paragraph summary. What are those things?
Yeah.
Just so that the state, what's going to wind up in the warrant? Forget about the actual, oh, do we know the actual FY20 budget yet? No, but we probably know enough that we could write that summary. So I think for us, I'm not prepared to vote on, I don't think, any of these.
Right.
But I also think that we need to have that draft warrant with the descriptions together, and maybe we can all pick a few, so we're all doing, if we got liaisons, different committees, or however it goes, kind of divvy it up so that there's a reasonable description of that. And then once that warrant is in place, it kind of ties into the next step a little bit too, which is, you know, before the FinCom can vote on the warrant, they need to know what the warrant is.
Right.
So I think we need to provide a little structure behind this, which is draft the warrant, which is you do. Donna usually takes a first stab, for example, and then we each pick a, I don't know, we'll assign these however you want, or we pick them based upon our liaisons, and then we each contribute to get the draft together, and then we've got a reasonable basis. Like the planning board's already through stuff, they've had public hearings on the things, then it's our decision about, yeah, we're ready to vote, and here's the warrant article, and here's a summary ready to go, and then we just start kind of revising and clipping off the warrant, and it gets completed. So for tonight, if
Work
we're
on
gonna,
some summaries.
I think that's where the summary is. We're like, well, what does that mean? That's what we're struggling. You know, I think we need a short, succinct paragraph that is going to be the articulation to the voters at town meeting of what are all these things.
I can take on the planning board and the Affordable Housing Trust ones.
Okay. And then, is there any tonight that we can just as a group just tick off that are kind of lower hanging fruit? I would say the Airbnb one is one that we can probably take off, because I think Patrick said they weren't thinking about bringing it to this town meeting, so let's cross that one right off the list.
I would say that we already have a draft of the OPEB irrevocable trust language. It's fairly standard language, and it's a housekeeping item.
Right.
I can get that to you and Donna to be included as a warrant article, and that be voted on.
I'm happy to draft a summary for that if you
And
want.
the summary can, it's very 2 sentences probably, really. We formed a trust.
Yep.
The state would like it to be a little more firm. This is what we're doing to make it
Right.
untouchable, basically.
I'll do the Patton Homestead one too. I'm the liaison there.
Okay. Allison, do you mind, can I have you do the community preservation one?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And let's see, you said you'd do the planning board one, Bill,
And the Affordable Housing Trust.
and affordable housing.
How about the road acceptance one?
I can work on that one with
Okay.
Joe and Patrick and Tim.
All right. Do you want me to take a stab at the budget ones? Like FY20 ones? Because I think it'll probably read very much like
They're gonna
last
be-
year's. Is just what's the tax impact? And
Right. Yeah, I think
so I
that's-
might be able to
Yeah, look-
copy and paste.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
kind of what
I
I'm
was going
hoping.
to say, you could probably use the
Yes,
language
if
that
you can
Robin
send me a
used last
copy of
time
last
on.
Right.
year's as a template.
Yeah.
That'd be helpful.
And I'll let's see, I'll write down to see if I can find that email with the summaries and stuff in it from last year, and
All right.
I can check too, because I could probably find it. I have Annabella find it.
yeah,
So
that'd be
I'm not
great.
trying to short cycle what we're going
No.
through there,
No.
but then
Well, the important thing is we have a meeting next Monday to basically go over all this, so you're organizing our thoughts ahead of time here so that we can get ready for next Monday.
No, even if I was going to say, if we could have a game plan for having the summaries at least loosely formulated for next go-round,
yeah.
that would help us along a lot.
So we haven't taken a vote on whether or not so for the FY20 budget, we really don't have to take a vote on whether or not it's going to appear on our warrant. We know it's going to
Right.
appear on our warrant.
That's
Right.
why I'm thinking I'd just write up
I
the summary.
totally agree with
Right.
you. We haven't taken a vote on whether or not to move forward the appointment of town clerk
That was the next thing I was going to talk
to
about.
elected or appointed, and she's here tonight, so it's to have that discussion. And I asked for another article to go on the warrant that's not on this list, but the board has to vote it. It's just my opinion, and you have to decide whether or not you want it, is to have a bylaw on what office is responsible for the minutes.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said. What?
A bylaw, who's actually responsible for the minutes. So we have a minutes policy, which is very good, but it puts all of the responsibilities on some of the actual committees, and then the law states that the committees have to maintain their minutes. But we as a board, and Joe as the town, has to be responsive as the records officer. So if he gets a request in for the CPC minutes, and they're only held at the CPC, and he can't get them, then the whole town is held responsible for the lack of having them. So in most towns that I've researched and come across, that role is taken on by the clerk.
Yeah.
That's not defined in our town.
Yeah.
So I'd like to define it as part of a bylaw. A lot of towns define it as a bylaw or a part of their charter, so that those committees are responsible, and then whatever office we determine is responsible for saying, okay, these are the meetings that took place, these are the minutes I have, these are minutes I'm missing, where are my minutes?
So this kind of goes to the fact that we do this shout out regularly of people posting minutes and not doing it regularly, and there's no teeth behind our ask.
No teeth, but the law is changed to say you better have some teeth, because,
Yeah.
and Joe, you can speak to this, but
Yeah.
he's going to be held accountable for when they're gone missing. Or never show up. So we need some type of a process to define this.
So this would kind of move into a general filing of all minutes in a timely manner through the clerk's office. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and the clerk's office, if that's who you so designate,
who you
is
designate.
responsible for making sure they're receiving the minutes.
Right. And right now, I think other boards and committees other than us, and I think the Council on Aging has their minutes at the Council on Aging. Is that correct? Or
That's what I've heard. I haven't seen them.
You have
Oh,
them?
well, they dropped them off when I kept asking for them,
Okay.
but we didn't have them prior.
So
The
other,
point being, like, anybody should be able to find the stuff without too much trouble and go to a
Right.
place and get them, right?
Well,
That's the whole
big
point.
yeah, the big
I'd
thing is,
suggest that, if I could,
Yes.
I'd like to suggest that if we're going to create a policy to standardize where our boards and committees
deposit.
record their minutes, that we also make it incumbent on those boards and committees that when they do that, and I think you did this.
did a minutes policy
A minutes
recently.
policy, the minutes policy requires them to also scan them into OCR format so that they can be uploaded to the town website.
Correct.
So, the good news is that once you do that, and part of the reason I suggest this, is once you do that, the state law has been updated to say that a proper response from us is if we know that they're on the town website as part of that policy, then we can refer people
To the website.
to the website for that period of time. Now, this helps us going forward. It won't necessarily help us going backward. I don't know if it needs to be a warrant article. That's a decision for all of you. If it's a policy direction from you, it would become my responsibility as a town manager to implement something that gets that to happen.
The reason I suggested it as a warrant article, which is a little different, and as a bylaw, is because currently you have, your town clerk is elected. Currently, this role is mostly filled by a town clerk, okay, in other cities and towns. Your town clerk is elected. You can't manage what the town clerk does or does not do. If we name it in our bylaws that this is a responsibility of the town clerk, then it's clearly defined, and then that role is there. So that's why I wasn't looking at it as a policy, and that's why other towns have it in their bylaws and charters. So that's why it's a little bit of a different approach. And I agree with you, going forward, if you're telling people to put them up there, what we're missing is who's not doing it.
Right. We don't have.
So we need that piece.
I like the idea of having consistency too. If I want to go search for the stuff on the town website or go ask somebody, where do I go? We need that kind of use case is what we got to solve for. And whatever the right place for it is fine. If we're going to propose a bylaw, the towns have examples we jump on. We need to consider any cost related to that for FY20, I would guess. I'm not saying it's big, but if we do stuff, we ought to make sure we got the resource to do it properly. Because we've been doing these shout outs before, and it hasn't happened. And we got all the people that we got, right? So if we're expecting something to be different,
because we don't define roles and responsibilities.
Well, it's not just the definition. If we're going to ask something to be happening that isn't happening now, it's more work than what's being done now. So if it's more work than's being done now, we should put a little something in there to get it done.
I mean, on the meeting policy, we did talk about this, and that's why we created that employee liaison matrix. We sort of identified. But you're looking for a single point of contact, right?
All of those are supposed to file to one place.
Right. Because we identified like 6 people.
And do we not file to one place now?
I believe there's no standard practice, and there's no one checking to say 2 planning board minutes are missing, ZBA's missing.
There's not a matrix spreadsheet.
I guess my other concern is kind of the demand on staff, clerk office staff, as far as the chasing people down and harping on them to turn in their minutes.
So usually what other towns do is they keep an Excel spreadsheet, and every time they post one, they put in the name of the committee that met, the date, and then they fill in the date that they received the minutes.
Missing.
And then once a quarter, they send out the sheet. I have all these holes.
I'm kind of with Allison of having a heavier hand about this because it's required for transparency. And to make it easier to fulfill those requests, or for somebody who doesn't even want to go as far as, look what poor Allison had to do to even find out what was going on at the school committee and nomination stuff. We want to make these things easier if possible. My point is that whether that's a bylaw or a policy, and that we got the resource in place to do it. Because it's not being done today, effectively. So if we need it to be done, we ought to staff it appropriately.
Once a month. So somewhere between 30 and 40 probably minutes done a month. So over the course of the year, you got 400 to 500 we have to track and post. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
So let me work with Marissa to work in the budget and come up with a number of what it will require.
Do we have any?
Also, see though, if other clerks' offices with the same staffing are providing this service, this is not an unusual request. We're the unusual request.
Do we, Andrea, since you're standing up, do we have any tracking now, or is it up to individual boards and committees to kind of police?
It's up to them to give me the hard copy of the minutes because I'm the keeper of records. There's nobody policing them. The policy that you guys made was that the boards and committees post their minutes online.
And have they been doing that? Do we know? Don't know.
No one's been in place to police all the different boards and committees in every meeting that they've had.
I don't think it's been done.
No.
No.
And then I don't think, I guess our current policy now with our minutes doesn't seem like it's been followed to the way we would like it to. We're missing a piece, right? But I don't know if it would be, I guess it would be a different thing. As of right now, I wouldn't, I guess.
If you're the keeper of the records, forget about online. If you're the keeper of the records, do you see that other towns, it is the clerk who is keeping the records on whether or
They
not
keep
they
the
submit?
records, yes, but they're not putting them online for the boards and committees.
Okay.
But
so-
what they get, they keep on file.
Right, they're just recording it or filing it.
Correct, just like with the ethics, just like with the open meeting law. We submit, we take in, and they're on record for when being asked.
you're getting
But we
hard
don't police them.
But you
We're
track-
supposed to.
You track
Supposed to.
who you.
We track, but we don't police them.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
I'm not going after people constantly that repeatedly don't return them.
Ethics?
Yeah.
So then who does follow up with our committee members that aren't following the ethics law?
I have it on record. I've been told I submit, I return, I send out a second letter, and that's it. And if they break the law, then they did not sign off on their ethics, which is in violation.
Yeah.
But we don't we've been told we don't have to police it.
Okay, no, and that's fair enough, but I'm saying if we, as the board, leaders don't know we have committee members that are not
Not complying,
following
right.
state law,
We should
then
know.
how can we even help
Protect the town's
move-
interest.
Right.
protect the town? This is the problem I'm having. If we
Right.
don't know there's holes, then we can't help move these things forward.
Right. I mean,
And-
I guess at the least, there should be some type of a spreadsheet that when Andrea gets the hard copy of the file or whatever, that it goes in, and if she's missing one, there's a little thing that says, hey,
And I can do that if that's what you want me to do. I don't
That would be a
I
good
don't
start.
think I can post all boards and committees minutes
That's
without
the other
extra
one.
help.
I don't think, I mean, maybe.
But I can
my
keep a
understanding is
spreadsheet.
that we need to find another way to get those things posted as the chair, whoever is supposed to be posting them now should be posting them. Maybe that's even part of the spreadsheet, whether it's been, the minutes have been submitted and whether they've been uploaded. Maybe there's a dual thing there, because I can't see you scanning every single document that comes in and.
And uploading.
Liaisons assigned they're supposed to help with that. And in most of the cases, the larger committees, there's a staff member who has the knowledge, has been trained how to use the scanning equipment and knows how to post the minutes up to the website after. So we just need to we need to circle, with staff members, we can circle back around and make sure they're doing what we've asked them to do. The boards and committees.
A little bit different.
A little bit different.
Mark?
This is a problem we struggled with 6 years ago. I mean, it is, so anything you can do to have teeth will help. In the end, it's the committee members who are not complying. From a citizen's perspective, what's really hard is to search for minutes and find 100 documents online that say minutes, February, and a date. The file name,
Right.
it doesn't have that it's a planning board or Concom or HDC, so whatever policy you do, please include a file naming structure.
We did.
That would be very helpful.
We did. We actually said that this is the file naming structure that you should follow for that exact same reason. But I think where we're missing a piece is if we need to know what minutes we don't have.
Right.
And I would say now we also need to know committee members that aren't filling
I think we've got kind of three things. We've
Spreadsheet pretty
right.
quickly. I mean, it's
Right. I
22
think if we
committees and
get a
12 months year.
spreadsheet together that
Right.
that tracks minutes submitted
Yeah.
or minutes missing for that matter, and then whether they've been uploaded, and then who's out of compliance with ethics or minutes or whatever.
I have all that for the ethics.
You have
I
that,
keep
yeah.
that on file.
Do you want to forward me that list? I'll share it with the board, and perhaps
Sure.
we can fashion a letter
Yeah.
to come from the board.
I think that would be good. Yeah.
Requesting everybody to get current.
Well, because we appoint people too, so if we're keep appointing someone who's not following it, we
Right.
need to be
We need
aware
to
of
know,
that.
right?
Yep.
Call a threat sometimes to try to take off the board.
I don't disagree, yeah. Thank you so much.
Mary Alice, do you have something to add?
Two things. Annabella has such a spreadsheet for the Board of Selectmen. And
Yes.
the board does the
CPC.
the
HAHD,
And the
yeah.
HDC.
But what I would suggest is there's some useless dates there, like when the minutes are sent in, nobody cares, just that they're done. Like the dates that are there should be relevant. You should say the meeting was this day, the minutes are here, And that, like, the meeting, the agenda, and the minutes should all be together somehow.
Right.
And then you know if there's a hole. Oh,
We've got an agenda but no minutes,
the
and
agenda's there, but there's no minutes. So everything gets 3, because there's no use saying, like, when was it submitted, when was it approved, when was it, no, if somebody has to
Right,
look
I
at all
agree.
those dates, they're gonna get.
those are all irrelevant,
I
right?
agree with
That's
you.
what I would say, just the 3.
Just the 3 things.
I would add a fourth. So the school
All right.
committee, sorry, Mark Johnson again. The school committee had the regional, anyway, they had figured this out about 4 or 5 years ago. Not only did they have the agenda and the minutes, they
All the
also had
handouts.
whatever handouts
Packet, right.
were relevant to the topics. And then they had another column for things that were delivered after the meeting that were relevant to the meeting. So it was, so you could actually look at the agenda and then download the PDF of the topics that were submitted. For some boards, it's not relevant. For some boards, it's critical. I mean, how do you go to a planning board and not see a plan?
Right.
Right? I mean, so I mean, it's really, from the citizen's perspective, building in a structure that includes addenda that might be relevant is something I'd recommend.
So our policy says stuff's supposed to be done within 2 meetings,
Yep.
and the liaisons are supposed to put agendas, minutes, and handouts on the town website.
Yep. Doing it great.
We've identified 11, we've identified 11 liaisons.
So where I get to is your point about a bylaw is going to do, I'm trying to, what's going to get change to happen?
Well, as Andrea stated, she is responsible for all our records.
Right.
If we have holes in our records, I'm looking to her. If you're looking to that position, if you're looking to someone else, I'm fine with that too. But who is doing this, or how is it getting done? Because I can tell you right now, it's not getting done, and we don't have minutes. And we don't have, to my knowledge, the handouts we're getting aren't getting uploaded anywhere. We're missing, and the law's been very specific about this stuff.
Yeah, we don't, I mean, planning board doesn't have any attachments. It's the meeting and the agenda.
And that's it, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. There's no attachments.
We don't have attachments either.
Ours are less critical, but
I think, I agree with what you're saying, but I don't know that residents would feel they were less critical.
if they're at home and they want to see an attachment, right?
They want to see it. They want to know what the letter we just talked about from Patton says.
Mhm. I mean, we have it electronically. It's just not, it's not posted. It's in an email.
So what the school committee does, and I wouldn't be opposed to as far as attachments, is when the person who uploads that agenda, they upload all these
They do all that.
packet
That's true.
attachments. And
As a
they're
PDF.
Yeah.
They're just there. And Annabella, I think, would be happy to do that. I think she's a little
Already doing it.
leery.
She already
Already doing
scans
it.
it all for you, so
Already
it's
scans it
just a
for
matter
us.
of adding it to the posting.
No, I understand that. She's leery to put it on the website because she's afraid she might put something out that's confidential.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we
I
could
can work
tell
with
her,
that.
or,
Yeah, we'll work with
I'm
it.
just,
We can make that part
I
of
agree.
our
There's some stuff in there
agenda
that-
clearance
yeah,
or
that's-
something like that. That's not a big issue.
Yeah.
but, so, with the public records law and the way it's functioning, we need a better way to do this. If you have a better way to do it, that's fine. If you think it's an appointment position or a employee's position to keep track of all this and keep the board informed, then you don't need a bylaw. If you think it's an elected position's role, then to me, you need a bylaw. So it's just, I'm not saying either way is wrong or right, but you need something.
It needs to get
So, I
better,
mean,
right?
make a note, Sean, because I don't want to lose track of this too, but we also have executive sessions that we had about 10 this year that we have not,
Do we have?
that are sitting in limbo right now. Because they're still pending some sort of, but I just want to make sure we don't lose track of those.
Yeah.
And there's no list. I created a list, but the list doesn't exist anywhere. Maybe it's on a spreadsheet somewhere, but, so I have the ones that I've approved and have been approved by this board, but they haven't been posted yet, haven't been released yet, because they're still pending some, most of them are still, because of the cell phone tower, it's all still
Right.
pending legal.
So,
But that's a different topic. Maybe we
Different
can talk
topic,
about-
but
talk about
similar
next
vein,
time.
similar vein.
So I would suggest this is a new topic, so to speak, for all of us. If we can just mull it over and then maybe have a better discussion at our next meeting and decide how you want to, or you may or may not want to move forward.
Can I also just add that I'm happy to do a spreadsheet, if you want to put it in a policy or whatever, that when we get the minutes, we just check off who gets the minutes. I mean, that's just a matter of writing down on a spreadsheet. That
As
we
far
can
as
do.
Simple solutions, so
Yeah.
what we're looking for, I think that would be great. If we could get some kind of spreadsheet together that does kind of what we're talking about, and then
Yep.
either we figure out some way to notify myself, the chair, or Joe, who's kind of in arrears on things, and then we can send a little letter out or something like that automatically, or an email out, and say, listen, you're out of compliance for either ethics or minutes or something, please rectify the situation, and then we'll kind of keep sending those out if we got somebody that's still in violation of whatever after the couple weeks or something like that.
It's just every week you take the spreadsheet and send it out to everybody.
Right.
Like all the boards and committee chairs and the liaisons, and go, here's the current list.
It's only 22 people.
Ladies and germs, you know, come on.
I think that's a
get
good
with
idea.
it.
Right. That way it's just all out there,
I'm
everybody
not
gets the
into
same
public
thing.
shaming stuff, but you know,
But
it's
that would be
like,
easier, you wouldn't have to.
then
you could
everybody
just
knows what's
do-
going on.
You could just do all boards and committees, it'd just be one email for you instead of, going through the whole list. I think that's a good idea.
When they're appointed, you should tell them.
When they're appointed, they get the paperwork when they come in, but
Yeah.
they don't always return them. And then they don't do it the following year.
Yeah. It's the follow-through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the follow-through that's the problem sometimes.
It's the test year that's the hardest.
Yeah. Because that's a lot of sitting through, watching prompts and answering questions. So more discussion to follow on that. We can work on a spreadsheet, or Andrea can work on a spreadsheet. And
Andrew and
if-
I'll work on it. We'll get it.
But also, you still think we need a bylaw to deal with this?
No, I think if you can come up with a process that covers us, I'm completely happy.
All right, so let's.
We do.
Do you know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's give that a shot, and if we can't figure it out, we'll move ahead with something.
All right.
All right.
And the
So
town-
Andrea's here.
Yeah.
Because again, we never voted on it. You may or may not wish to have the warrant article on appointment, of moving the town clerk from elected to appointed.
All right, so just before you do that, though, Allison,
Sure.
I'm just kind of thinking about, we're not voting yay or nay whether we agree or disagree with these, but as far as getting them on the warrant, planning board's bringing their 3. I would assume we're going to say they can go on the warrant, right? Road acceptance bylaw, if we get everything together, that will go on the warrant, and we can vote on whether we agree or disagree later on. Budget and capital plan are going to be on the warrant. CPC will be on the warrant. Patent Homestead operational budget, there were another budget thing on the warrant. The OPEB is a housekeeping thing on the warrant.
And Joe, that was in our packet.
Yeah, it is there.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I just saw it too.
The Airbnb we cut out.
Yeah.
Affordable housing bylaw update with the quorum will be on the warrant. And then
Yes.
the last thing is just whether we're going to put the appointment of town clerk article on the warrant or not.
So the open discussion.
Yep.
Yeah, the HAT is the quorum, and it's also removing the town manager position as a voting member.
Right, sorry, I couldn't remember that portion of it.
Are you going to let us forget? that?
Let's lead with that.
You remembered, right?
Let's lead with
You
that.
remembered. Get the town manager off of that.
Present that one.
and
So
the quorum.
the other, one other was whether or not we want to separate any school
Right.
items.
School budget
So
stuff.
the school budget's all in. Wenham is going to have an override,
And we had
up to a half
talked,
override.
to your point, Scott, about separating capital
Right.
from the operating.
Right. Even if it's in their, that's their total budget, but have, just like we have operations and capital, them also doing it. And the reason why I recommend it, even if it's pretty insignificant this year, what they've showed us in the draft, 2 years ago, it was,
Was a lot.
there was a lot, and the turf field was on the project, and then that quickly
vanished.
came off. Then there was $2.3 million of urgent backlogged items that didn't get approved by the town meeting,
And aren't back on.
and it's not on their current budget. at the same time, there's MSBA investigations going on about school consolidation and condition of Cutler or Winthrop. So we know there's new school activities going to be coming along, and there's roofs and all sorts of things that we also know are out there. So,
And the school committee told us at their last meeting that they were investigating the possibility of buying Long Meadow. So that's when they come to us eventually as a.
So I'm kind of like thinking structurally we should operate similarly. Like we put out, here's the operational budget, here's the capital budget, both for the town and the district. That's just muscle memory that we do all the time, no matter what it is in any given year. It's part of a direct discussion with the townspeople so that they get this, I'm kind of on my soapbox on the capital committee stuff, but that's important when people get the long-term insight into what the capital needs are from, that's our biggest spending.
Right, and I think it helps to the whole theme that we keep touching on is this transparency thing, because I know sometimes when you get one number, you don't know what it's all made up of. If we're separating, here's what we need to keep operating and here's what we would like to do, I think that's a lot more transparent. It's a lot more, it gives us the opportunity to kind of promote stuff. Here's what we want to do and here's what we kind of need to do for maintenance and stuff. And the school committee, the same thing. I would think that would help them sell programming and stuff like that. So it might be a benefit to them as well to kind of.
I don't want the school committee to feel like we're pushing them around in some way, but with these multi-million-dollar things potentially coming and going, right? I think this is an educational moment to tell people what's going on and what is in their long-term plan.
And I still don't understand the resource officer being in their budget.
Yeah,
pending the outcome of an agreement between the town and the regional school district, they've chosen to leave it in their budget.
I know.
We're working on an MOU and an IMA at the moment.
Okay.
And also the dollar amount will most likely change.
Okay.
Their budget may be $1.
Perfect.
So we're in the negotiations over that right now. We're just waiting for Jeff to come back from vacation, then we'll have a full talk about it.
Okay, perfect, thank
you. Duke Seaver, Essex Street. I do not think you should put the appointment for the town clerk on the warrant. You will get elected. She should get elected.
Thank you, Duke.
May I ask you why you have that opinion? What is the? Why do you feel that way?
Well, I'm going by. We lost a good town clerk because of personality conflict.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
which was a bigger issue.
Yeah, I just don't want that to happen again. I don't want.
And she was elected.
Yeah, but the reason she left.
I don't disagree, but again, she was elected, so I'm just trying to weigh out what's the difference between the elected and the appointed.
I think you're taking the choice away from the townspeople. That's all.
Okay.
So you're going to leave it on the warrant or take it off?
We're going to discuss it in a minute.
Yet.
Okay.
Sit tight. More talking back to your point, Scott, about separating operational and capital. Do people think that that's?
I think that's a great suggestion.
A good idea?
I think it's a great suggestion, and and you're going to have the new capital committee.
Right.
More transparency, but I think that traditionally that's how the school is presented, and I think it makes sense to segregate it that way.
Jeff, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree.
I see you shaking your head, yeah? Okay, good.
Scott, do you want to take a swing at drafting that?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Sorry, since you raised it.
Yep, since I
did it to yourself. All right. Was there anything else on that? No, that's pretty much it. No. Okay. And so now let's move on to Allison. We'll go back to you now for the appointment of the town clerk. We're back on you, sorry.
Okay. So I came up with a little cheat sheet, elected versus appointed. What I found was, so if you are elected, Duke, you actually have no minimum job-related qualifications. Any resident of the town can run if they are 18 years or older, and qualifications of the candidate are provided as part of your campaign material. Your residency is you're a Hamilton resident. Responsibility is state law and Mass General law. For personnel standards, you have unlimited vacation, personnel, and sick time. Certifications are optional. Accountability is via election every 3 years. Our elected officials cannot be removed from office. They can't be disciplined, suspended, terminated, or supervised by the town manager. Elected officials act independent of the town manager, are not restricted or regulated at any time. They have to devote to official duties. The work schedule is devoted by the elected officials. Any other requirements? The only requirements are individual be a resident and registered voter. Voters are not in a position to effectively supervise and evaluate performance. It's an independent and anonymous, not beholden to anyone but the taxpayers. And the compensation is an annual stipend paid with no regard to schedule or hours worked. An appointed position, the town sets minimal qualifications via a job description. You could, if you so choose, have a residency requirement. The responsibilities would be followed to a job description with roles and responsibilities and the state law. Elections, open meetings, and ethics would be subject to Mass General law and our personnel policies. For personnel, time off would correspond with the personnel policies of the other town professional staff. Certifications could be required. Accountability would be to the town manager, who would have the ability, if needed, to discipline an employee or work in more of a team environment with that employee. Hours of operation are determined by the town manager, and it's an annual salary based on actual hours worked. So those were the pros and the cons that I saw. A number of towns have moved from an elected position to an appointed position for those reasons. I agree the last town clerk, not to get into a detail, left for specific reasons, but I think that was a bigger reason which has been resolved, and that problem was a problem. But I think if you're reporting to a town manager that's a fair, responsible, and respectful person, I don't see that as being a problem. And if you're not reporting to that type of person and that person's not in the town manager role, then you have a different issue. But
I'm going to suggest, if it's, I just forgot my point of thought there.
no problem.
If it's not broken, don't try and fix it.
It is
maybe
broken,
with the next,
unfortunately.
maybe the next town clerk, we should, you can do it then.
So
But-
what we would do so just so you know, if this board voted to put it to the town meeting, and then if the residents of the town agreed, this would not affect the current clerk's elected. She would fill out the remainder of her elected term, and then she could even be a candidate for the appointed if everything did move forward.
Doesn't change my opinion.
No, I understand that.
With an appointed person, is there any union or employee benefits, all that? How does that all work out with an appointed position?
Well, I'd have to look at it. My recollection is that at current, the town clerk, I think, is if not the lowest, definitely among the lowest paid department heads. And I think that would wind up having to be addressed in the budget in the year that it becomes an appointed position, because I think that it would be a little bit inconsistent to have a department head at that lower salary as an appointed position, requiring certain certifications and everything else that would go into the job description. So there'd likely be that.
So that job just got a major bump in the last 3 years. No, I'm just saying, and we had a phenomenal town clerk before the bump went in, but that position was moved up substantially to be in line with the other department heads. So it's not that far out of line currently.
Okay. The public input I've gotten about this has been totally against it. There's nobody saying this is what we should try to go and do. And I know that there are efforts in some places, some towns across the state, and kind of the efficiency kind of view of the world, like everything rolls up to the town manager. The more you have that kind of pyramid organization, the better things are. To me, sometimes we bring things to town meeting because we don't want to take a position exactly, but we think it's important for the town to review something. So we do stuff even if we don't personally agree with it all the time. But in my opinion, I think it's going to induce a lot of angst that if the town clerk was coming forward and saying, you know, there's a better mechanism here. There's an organizational structure that's better for us. I think if I was a voter, I'd be going, that's cool. You know, that's okay. You know, that's fine. I also went back and asked some of the members, or at least one that I actually got in touch with of the original government study committee. It's like, why did you create it the way you did? What was there a reason for creating this town clerk, how you did it, and with a one-year term? And I got a
It's not a one-year term. It's a 3-year term.
A 3-year term, sorry.
And they didn't create it. It's been this way since.
But in the government study committee, when they were looking at overall how we were running our government, what was their thinking? And they created a town manager, and what about the town clerk? And I got basically kind of a blank stare. I was like, I don't really remember much of a discussion about it. So to me, at that would have been I would have thought that would have been an important time for that group to look at overall what are our elected positions and who we've got and where the responsibilities lay, because it was a big shift to make.
You had a town clerk at that time who worked an extraordinary amount of hours and worked for the amount of time that it equated to in the annual salary. That has shifted. And I've spoken to a number of people that want to move this forward, and I've even spoken to the prior town clerk. This has shifted, and you're also not taking into account the effect that this has on your fellow employees in this building, who are extremely frustrated with the disparities in personnel-related issues.
How do you know that?
I speak to them. They call me. That's how I know that. And last year, I was going to bring this forward as a warrant article, and the Finance Committee and myself negotiated and sat down and spoke with the town clerk about those personnel disparities, and she agreed to correct some of them and then did not follow through on doing any of those, and that's why I'm bringing this forward.
Actually, I never talked with you, Allison.
I can show you the email.
I didn't.
Andrea,
Yeah, and I talked with Michael.
This is
Yep.
about your
Yep.
position.
But this is
It's not about
position.
I
your
know,
position.
but we're not bringing up
Yeah, but
just
not-
my position.
In terms of lessons learned, it's not
This
about your
is,
position. Your
this
position
is, one of the reasons that I'm bringing this back is equality for personnel. And that is a huge interface, and if you wish to discuss it with other town employees and speak to them, I'm sure you'll find the same feedback, Scott. So that's the reason for bringing it forward, and I can 100% see where the government study wouldn't have brought it forward a few years ago. But you're in a different, what's happening is different.
Did you want to say something else, Andrew?
Well,
I think I'm going to not, but I'm going to listen.
You get a chance to respond to the criticisms that you've offered, but I was more into the role of politics, and at a time, that group didn't deal with it because they were getting a deal, it seems like. Everybody was really happy with what was happening. And now we want to change that. So I think it's politics that are
I agree.
of what gets done, of what do we bring forward to a town meeting, what do we want people to consider as important changes, and that's why I'm sharing what I am. Sorry, I don't mean to not step on you being able to respond to Allison's.
Right now, your role, Andrea, is there any written expectations of you other than you've been elected as a town clerk?
There is a job description for town clerks.
Do you get quote-unquote reviews, yearly reviews?
No.
They don't do we haven't got them at all at the town.
Yeah, your kind of review is your election,
couldn't get
right?
reviewed anyway.
But I would. I've always worked as a team with the town manager.
That's not what I'm stating. What I'm stating is you don't get reviewed, you're not accountable to the town manager.
But when you work as a team, it's
Right now,
I go to the town manager, the town managers come to me.
Saying there's no, you don't necessarily have to do what you're doing now.
No, but I like to work as a team.
But you're working with the town manager and the other departments and doing what's expected of you. For
I go to the department head meetings, yep.
I mean, I guess I've heard both sides. I've heard more from people of Scott's voicing of that the elected official or elected position is working for them. I see Allison's point as more accountability or kind of more structure to it, and to take Andrea out of the personal equation of it as far as we're just looking at the position.
Position that was brought up while I was out on maternity is how it all stemmed.
No, it actually,
then it should have been addressed before my maternity.
I don't want to go into character, Andrea, and I don't think you do either.
No, I don't.
This is about whether or not a position that makes $70,000, $80,000 a year.
I wish I did, but I don't.
Follows into the same type of personnel policies and the same type of accountability as other positions within the town making the same amount of money.
And I do.
And so the town employees currently would track their hours out of the office, vacation, be subject to the same type of terms.
Which we have a spreadsheet. Michael and I had a spreadsheet we kept.
So again, it goes down to whether or not the treatment is the same to all employees as far as time out of the office for full-time employment of a full-time paid salary.
Okay, so when I work 21 hours a day, where's that? At an election? Or when I'm here for early voting, where are those all recorded?
I think
I'm allowed to take time off after those hours.
I think any professional position has an expectation that some days you work longer, some days you work shorter, and I have that role currently even myself.
Yep.
So when I'm working longer, I fill it into the same database that every other employee does, and when I'm out of the office, I fill in my time for what I'm out of the office.
That's what I do on mine.
I'm accountable.
Yep.
You don't submit.
I don't submit it to the treasurer's office, but it's there. The spreadsheet that Michael and I agreed to is on my computer. I've given to Joe.
Saying every other personnel exempt employee typically who makes a full-time salary tracks and submits their time through a payroll division, and especially of exceptions. It's just a normal way to do business. And that's why I think if we're paying a certain salary for a full-time employee, I would like to see the benefits of an appointed employee versus an elected employee. I think it's for the benefit of the town. I think the accountability has to be, have a better structure. I think that having accountability to the residents, most residents don't have a way or a standard way to evaluate what's happening in the offices. So that's why I bring this forward.
Andrew, do you have a sense of when you go to your clerks' conferences or whatever, I don't know exactly what they're called, but the ratio to elected to appointed positions, is that ever something that comes up? You're all clerks.
Well, once in a while, someone will broadcast through the clerk group email. Currently, I don't know numbers. I know right now elected is higher than appointed, but not by that much anymore. But there's 351 communities.
Yeah, I asked the state and they gave it to me, and I apologize. I had it for the last meeting and I.
So then another question for you since you're here. Do you see any advantage or disadvantage to being an appointed position? Take yourself out of the equation. I mean, I see that. I think Allison's thing is more structure and accountability, but I feel that if the elected official is working in the capacity and fulfilling the roles of the office, that it's a non-issue. I think it gets in the kind of trouble zone when, you know, like I'm looking at there's no requirements. Basically, it's the same as when I got nomination papers to become a selectman. I wasn't a selectman before.
Right.
I could apply for the clerk's role if I wanted to. Right.
But you're held accountable by the residents, and they get to choose if you're. It's democracy.
You had experience in the clerk's office previously, so it was a natural move on to the clerk's role.
But what's the advantage of being elected versus being hired? Try to figure out the advantages.
And if it's appointed, it's an at-will employee for you?
It's a hire.
Or is it appointed by the?
It's not really appointed, it's hired.
You'd be
You're saying just a hire, just somebody applies to town hall.
Right, maybe I'm getting into semantics here with appointed versus hired, but.
It's a hired employee.
It's a hired employee.
You wind up doing what you do with department heads like Council on Aging, Planning Board.
That's something that's policy, so it's, I'm trying to think of what the advantage
What's
of
the
being
benefit
elected,
of being elected to the town?
Yeah, but it's not a policy thing.
Well, I would say the one benefit is that the town gets to choose.
They do, but they typically don't, because it's usually a non-contested role. It's usually just a contingent. The only way you usually
Re-election or a new.
Yeah, it's not usually ever a race, even like a selectman or a planning board or anything to that.
Right, because it's really a non-political office.
Right. So it doesn't follow that same suit.
The skill set are not the same people who would go for an election.
The moderator is usually not contested. There isn't anybody applied this time, and that's not appointed. Oh, somebody did, great. So there's somebody.
The moderator does not make anything for their role to become that position, and that's why it's. But so I'm saying, but what's the
compensation? It's just the choice of people in certain roles that is the policy of how we run our government.
I agree, but when you add in an annual salary versus even us as selectmen, so there's no comparison. But I'm asking. I told you I was bringing this forward. I was very transparent about it. What is the benefit to being elected? To the town?
Because to the townspeople, they get, it's democracy. They get to pick.
I would argue the difference, that you're going to get people who don't apply for the office because they don't want to be out there and get elected and go in front of hundreds and thousands of people, and they want to go. It's not a normal job. It's not a normal way you get a job, right?
Right.
To be elected in a small town.
Another question for you. Most of the clerks that you know and cohort with, have they been working in the clerk's office before they became appointed or elected, or is it, do you know?
I think it's a mix. I was brought in to work so that I would know the job. I know other people prior were assistants prior to running for election. I know other places where it was a vacancy, so someone ran.
Mixed bag then.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to kind of get my, who runs for it.
Will her overtime, she get paid with her overtime if she was appointed. Right now, she puts in overtime her time.
It would depend on how you created the hired position. If you created it as a department head, the way we do with our other department heads, they're salaried. So none of my department heads get overtime.
Well,
Right, whether it be hourly or
town
salary.
employees get overtime.
Right. Not, right, but not department heads.
But
Right.
she could join the union and get that overtime.
Well, now she's a department
Not
head.
the way the agreement is.
If she's a department head, she's going to get a salary.
I'm just throwing the questions
But-
out, that's all.
And there's no union,
Curious.
there are no department heads in the union.
Planning board appointed versus selected? I mean, is
Right, it's almost the same question, right, a little
It
bit?
is the same, except you're not paying a salary, Mark. That's a significant difference, that, to me.
the skill set, sorry, I didn't,
No, I.
The skill set could be very much the same whether or not you have it or don't have it. So that's the other thing. You have a very important, you're the record keeper for the town, you have very specific roles. What function you provide is essential, but to me, the difference is, so I don't know what I make, $2,800 a year to be a selectman? So if I come to one out of every 50 meetings, you won't reelect me. And you lost out on $2,500 and call it the end of the day. But it's very different if you're paying an annual salary to someone and you have no accountability in that regard. That to me is what the difference is. I agree, but I don't understand. To me, a hire for this position just makes sense. It's a full-time position. It works as a team member in the town hall with all other team members in the town hall that make an annual salary are accountable in the personnel policies for their time. And a lot of the town employees are all making a similar salary, but there's a discrepancy in the treatment, and I just like to see that aligned.
I guess for me, my hesitation with it is I would feel more comfortable if Andrea was bringing this forward with you to make it an appointed position. I guess that's my caveat there, is that you're not really on the same page on it. If it was, I think it'd be a lot easier for the public to digest. I think with it stands now, it's going to be a pretty heated issue at town meeting if it goes to the floor there.
And it may
But it won't be the first time or the last time that we have something on the
Right.
warrant that's like that. But
I just think it's much more of a fair and equitable relationship. And I think it's much more fair to all your other employees. And I think it's more fair, I think it's a
So,
better
I
relationship
get-
for the residents.
Yeah, my opinion of it is that I think the idea of it is worth thinking about. There's no rush to do it, so I think.
no, Andrea's, your term's in 2020, right?
Yeah.
So we've got another year or so
I
here.
think I would.
So you'd have to align it so that if you did make such a vote, that
It'd be
you
in
would know
time
what
for
you were
elections.
doing for next year, whether or not to have another year of elected appoint a person or to have it an appointed position. So your ATM is your time to make
Right.
this decision.
I would like to hear more public input personally than just, the anecdotal evidence that I
Yeah.
have or the anecdotal evidence that you have. If there's a way at our town meeting, as an example, which is where the people decide all this stuff, we do a little survey or get some input in some way for everybody who's there because I think things like this need serious runway.
Yeah, right. You can't just-
Explanation, why, the pros and cons. It's not, hey, Andrea, why do you want to be elected? It's not, I don't think it's proper to put her on the spot like that. When you ought to, if it's a thing that the selectmen think is a reasonable thing to do, or even if the town clerk thinks it's a reasonable thing to do, then I think people need a heads up about it well in advance. and what the trade-offs are, so that there's facts and there's some public debate about it. And
That's why I'm presenting it now, and have been presenting it beforehand, so that you can have those discussions, and you can do a survey if you choose. We don't take surveys at annual town meeting. We've never have. You take surveys, you can send out a survey through SurveyMonkey if you wish to, through your residents, and get some feedback if you so wish. And I would also say that you should get the feedback of your current employees, to get their feedback as well. But I'm not opposed to that. Do a survey, but you should be doing a survey prior to ATM. You should not be doing a survey at ATM. And if you want to get feedback, I suggest talk to people, talk to residents, talk to employees, and then if you want to put it on the agenda and we take a vote next Board of Selectmen meeting, I'm fine with that. And for anybody at home, please come forward. It will be by the will of the people. And I think the people should be educated on what they're receiving for their services and what out of their budget money. But I'm fine. I think we should postpone it then to the following Selectmen's meeting.
I'm not prepared to go spend a lot of energy to go collect all the input that you want in the next 2 weeks.
I don't
to make
want
that-
it. You wanted it.
Week.
I know where I'm at.
It's next week.
Huh?
We've
week
been
out.
discussing we're a week out because we got off track because of the holiday last week and everything else.
Yeah.
Your next meeting is a week out, not 2 weeks.
I mean, this is going to create a serious amount of political drama. There's no doubt about
may.
that. Well,
No, it's going
it
to.
will. So, I don't, stuff like that doesn't have a long runway, that people have debated pretty openly and freely for a long period of time, I've probably been the biggest advocate going fast around here about almost everything. So I don't want to sound like I'm changing horses, but I think when it comes to like the structure of our government and who we elect and who we don't elect, it's not it's way more than, this is the end of February and we've got 1 month before the town meeting.
It's a major change in structure, right?
How long has it been like this for? How many years? We're going to change it in a month.
I thought.
And most people that town said change it for the reasons I'm bringing forward.
That's fine, but I don't-
That's
time-
neither here nor there, though.
They're very coherent reasons,
Yeah.
Allison. I'm not, there are a lot of pros and cons.
Jeff, any thoughts?
No, I just thought that the government study committee, I thought that they were very specific about this being an elected position. And my understanding was it was because you had a resident inside the town hall office structure. You almost had a mole, if you will, watching out for the residents. And I just think it's interesting. We had that person and it didn't work. We lost the town manager because the leadership, or the town
Right.
clerk, because the leadership at the time didn't listen to what the town clerk had to say, so we lost the town clerk because of that conflict. So it didn't work, in a sense. I think
Right.
a lot of people knew about it and knew from the town clerk what the issues were, but it didn't work. It wasn't effective.
Right, and the town clerk
What's the
went
first
to the,
advantage that's just the advantage, that's what I've been looking for. What's the advantage of having, so that, what you just said,
well, the
formed a
town
different sort
clerk
of
went
light
to the
that was
Board of
interesting, yeah.
Selectmen. Town clerk went to the Board of Selectmen, went to a number of people and
Right.
told them the issues, and no one did anything.
Right, so it didn't work, is what I'm saying. Like, the intent,
The
my
intent.
understanding of the intent, it didn't work.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I'm torn.
I think it's a good topic. I don't think it's for this meeting. I think it needs to go to, I think we got enough work to do in the next 4 weeks. This is going to create a lot more dialogue.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared to vote on it, so.
No. All right, so should we table it for the moment?
What do we have to do?
Take it
Yes.
off the warrant.
There's no warrant yet, so.
There's
it's
no
not
warrant
on the
yet, Duke, so it's not on it yet. All right, we'll table it for now. And we'll talk about it next time when we talk about the warrant. And then we'll either vote to put it on or not.
there anything you need from me before then?
I don't think so. If so, I'll let you know.
Allowed to have an opinion on this?
What?
What's
Allowed
that?
to have an opinion on this?
Yeah?
No.
Do you want to say anything else, Andrea? You all set?
Is Joe allowed to have an opinion on this? But I'm pretty quiet there.
Yeah.
If you say you don't want to say anything, that's fine. I mean, you're sort of in a weird position, so I'll put you in an uncomfortable
I would
position.
recommend you not say anything at this point.
Thank you for taking me off the hook.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
tonight. All right. The last thing we have is discussion/timing of warrant prep and coordination with Finance Commission going forward. At our meeting on, was that Wednesday? That we had with the
Wednesday,
FinCom? We had talked to them about getting the summaries to them as soon as we could, so that they could make the recommendations as well and work on their book of recommendations and get that all set before it gets too late.
I think ideally what we talked about was being able to present to them the drafts of all the summaries by next Tuesday after your meeting Monday night, so that they can begin to figure out which of their committee members will be working on, liaising and whatnot, and drafting their book of recommendations members. The good news for them is that the budget aside, it only looks like you're currently considering about 10 or 11 articles total. And some, like the OPEB article, irrevocable. Now, see,
Yeah,
it's
tongue-tied.
contagious. You gave it to me. The OPEB irrevocable trust article was actually initiated with them, so I think they'll have an easier time of reviewing
Right.
some of that stuff. But they still have a lot of work to do, and this will be a first run at a book of recommendations from them. So hopefully we can have our summaries for you all to review next week.
All right, so our kind of charge for next week then, because we're not going to meet in 2 weeks, we're going to meet in a week, is everyone that's got a summary to get it written ahead of time, ahead of the meeting, and maybe even send it to Joe ahead of time so we can.
Oh, yeah. I think I would recommend this is our top priority.
Yeah.
Right, and that we also get, Donna usually does also a
Yep.
draft
I'll
of,
be talking to Donna
so they
first thing
can
tomorrow.
bounce
Yep.
to us that, and then we can start plugging in summary, so we're
Yep.
like hitting the right warrant article numbers and all the rest of the organization that goes
Yep.
on behind it.
All right, so warrant and summaries for next time, sooner than later on the summaries if you can.
Out the one from last year, email it out, just so as a template.
Yeah, I've got it on my, and Joe can ask Annabella to send it out,
In the morning, that'd be great.
just so we can see kind of
Yeah,
the format of it.
correct.
Anything else on that, and we move on to new business, or?
Well, just on that, is everybody comfortable? So basically what we're talking about is having this ready by next Monday with the summaries and a first draft of the warrant. You guys discuss it, basically set the form of the warrant. You'll have a chance to make some changes if you need to, but that'll give the Finance Commission a place to start, and then we'll advertise. Your practice has always been, though it's not required, is to have a public hearing on the warrant articles. So that would give us 2 weeks to advertise and have that public hearing on March 18th in advance of being able to post the warrant.
To close
Which is
it.
legally required to
Right.
close it. So the warrant needs to be closed by March 23rd in order to have the town meeting closed and posted, in order to have the town meeting on April 6th, which is the schedule, so. April 18th, March 18th is
Right.
cutting it a little close.
Yeah.
It's gotta be
And
closed by the
FinCom
23rd.
did share at the last meeting, too, the timing. That's
Yeah.
one of the things that, because they're all, now, for the first time ever, they're doing their report or advice about each
Right.
of the things. So that's why I think we've got to stick to our guns here with that schedule.
And that really gives us a tight timeline. If we have the hearing, if you have the hearing on the 18th, you vote to close the agenda that night, and everything is fine, we can send the book to the printers.
All right.
We can send the warrant to the printers and have it ready to be mailed out by hopefully the following Monday, the 25th, or at the latest, the 26th. And that gives everybody an opportunity to have it in their hands for almost 2 weeks before
But
town meeting.
the point is that the FinCom one, we're including their report with that mailing, right?
Right, that's the goal.
Right, and they need to also do the same thing. They need to finalize their book of recommendations to be able to put it.
And you said the 23rd was, we need to close it by the 23rd? Is that what you just
It needs to
said?
be posted by the 23rd.
Posted by, and that's Saturday.
That's that Saturday, which is 2 weeks prior to the town meeting. We can't have town meeting on the 6th if we don't post it by the 23rd.
Do you think it's worth having another brief meeting to close stuff?
Well, I think we see where we get out of Monday's meeting.
Yeah, see where we get, and then...
Right, if there's some that we can say, you know, we support them, I mean, we just
can
got some
tick off
budget
it.
information tonight,
Right.
so there's some updates to that.
Some updates to that.
I think the preliminary input from the FinCom about budget is, you know, in the school parts, I think they're relatively comfortable with, so this is probably not a significant change, so I don't think we have to go back through that whole loop.
Right.
Again with them. I think we can, based upon our own opinion of what Joe is sharing and what Marissa presents to us next Monday, we could go through the budget stuff, which is the biggest stuff.
Right. Yeah, let's see where we get. I think we can get a good bulk of it taken care of. If we need to, we'll have another, just a brief meeting to talk about a couple things, but...
We want to keep the agenda for this meeting next week to basically this warrant.
When are we
Yeah.
closing citizen petitions?
According to Donna, a citizen can file a petition for a warrant article right up until we post it, which
Good to know.
always kind of complicates things. But
The moderator, just for info for everybody, the moderator has a policy, which is, you know, work with the moderator to help get it in a fashion so that it's like acceptable at the town meeting. So if there's anybody thinking about them, they
should
hopefully they're working with Jeff
contact Mr. Malik now.
already.
Yeah.
Right, right, because we've had issues before where the language has been not up to par, and we haven't been able to do something with it.
Right. Okay, cool.
So I think as far as, I'll move on to new business now. I think the bulk of our next meeting should be just warrant.
Right.
Yeah.
Warrant, and then
Right.
if we have something from the road acceptance policy, we can talk about that, but...
And the HCA clarification letter?
Oh, and the HCA with Green Meadow, which I don't think that will take too long if we do our due diligence
That's,
on it.
from what I know, I don't think that's time critical.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
important, but I'm not sure if, this isn't done next Monday, I don't
Yeah,
think
can you
that,
see if, is there a deadline on that as far as?
I don't believe there was a deadline on it.
I'm not trying to postpone it, but
No,
I think we
but
gotta focus on getting the
I don't
warrant.
believe there's a deadline on it. I think that Bob was just trying to, you know,
Right.
make sure that he
Just because
was clear with us,
I'm
wants to-
hopeful and pessimistic at the same time, but we find out all the information we need before Monday's meeting.
Right.
So if we can, and it's easy to move on, we'll put it on the agenda.
I'll try to do my best to get info by the end of the week.
All right. Anything else? Anything from you, Jeff, or-
Some of the new business we already talked about tonight was for, I guess would be in a following meeting, the school committee, school agreement list of needs. Allison brought up those, like, are there things that we think are kind of critical things we'd like to see in there?
Yeah.
The road acceptance policy,
Yep.
and
The school agreement needs to be changed to reflect what we did in 2010.
And so
It'd be nice if someone
Yeah.
read it.
I'd been on the, Allison, I'd been on the emails with that,
Yeah.
and refresh my memory on, you had talked and emailed Jeff and Mike, the state, and now it was just,
Jeff,
or sorry, now it's just up to the school committee to put on an agenda and say, we're updating this? Is that where it's left
well, the
off?
school didn't have any record that the state had even approved the change from 2010. So I wrote to the state, and the state
Said they had.
sent me back the notice that it had been. But unfortunately, whoever typed it did not incorporate the changes appropriately.
Okay.
So I've written to Mike Harvey, Dr. Harvey, and Dr. Harvey says it's really up to the school committee. So I emailed David Plato as the chair, and he's not responding.
Okay.
So I don't know where it stands.
Where it stands.
but if there's a change to agreement, this is a three-party agreement.
It's not
Or
a
two.
change. We
Correct.
voted on this, and it wasn't put in place in the
Oh,
agreement.
so it's not actually changing the agreement, it's just their practice
It's
of
a
what they're supposed
correction.
to be doing.
No. So in 2010, we wrote a warrant article, and Wenham did, and the school committee, and it all got approved to say, please change, I believe it's section 1, paragraph B, to state the following.
Oh,
Okay? So delete it in its entirety and change it to state the following. And we put it as Appendix K to our warrant. The school committee still has paragraph B in there, written into the agreement, and they just put a paragraph K that actually says, we would like you to please delete all of paragraph B.
Oh, so they just added it on.
Absurd.
Sorry. They just added it on. They didn't replace the language that had been changed. Okay.
Yes, but it's how this has not been determined in almost 10 years.
So this doesn't require our signature as heads of Hamilton or the Wenham Board of Selectmen?
We should motivate the school committee to have the language incorporated that was voted by both towns.
And included properly.
Yeah, gotcha.
And the other portion of that was, on the front cover page, it has the dates on which the school committee was amended, and all the dates are wrong. So then if you go back and you say, okay, I want to find out what the town meeting vote was, you can't correlate the two.
They don't match up.
So I said, can you just change the amendment dates and change the language to reflect what actually was voted by the residents?
Okay.
And in all that, you found other things, or the town has noted other things over the years that should be changed in the agreement, and you'd like us to make a list that we can agree with Wenham should.
Well, I think things like coming out about the nomination papers and that type of stuff, I think even the school committee would agree with you. It just doesn't make any sense. So if we can find a common denominators that we all say, you know what, this piece really doesn't make sense, then let's just get rid of everything that doesn't make sense. And if we can't come to a common denominator, then we can't. But I think we should be able to clean up things that just don't make sense.
No, that makes total sense to me. And I'll reach out to David as well. And just ask him when they're going to have it on an agenda.
So, Scott, for future meetings, you said school agreement needs road acceptance policy. Was there others you were adding to that?
Do you have anything else for new business?
No. Well, the intercompany sale issue with Green Meadows Farm, but but that didn't sound like it was critical for next Monday.
Right.
I think you had information in your packets related to, I'm not going to remember the name of it now, the one that usually happens in May, in their request. Unfortunately, they didn't make it onto the agenda. In the initial drafts of the agenda, they were going to be on tonight's agenda as part of the consent agenda. We'll have them added to the
is that the
March 18th meeting.
The race or whatever?
Yeah, we'll have that added to the March 18th agenda, too.
Okay.
Probably as part of the consent agenda.
Allison, anything else besides the school committee stuff? And nope. Bill?
Nope.
All right.
Nope.
Motion to adjourn, anyone?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you at home. Thank you, everybody.
Peter, where's 466?